Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 5:30 p.m. special meeting. We are reconvening from closed session. At this time, there is nothing to report out from closed session. So at this time, we'll call the meeting to order. And could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mendoza. Here. Vice Mayor Meyer.
Here.
Councilmember Orlemans.
Here.
Councilmember Pearson.
Here.
Mayor Bryant.
Here. Okay. We do have a quorum. Could you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time we will go into business items. Item C1, conducting a workshop for the draft fiscal year 2024-25 through 25-26 operating budget and providing direction, if any, to staff. And Christine Andrews, the Assistant Director of Finance, will begin the presentation. Christine.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The purpose of tonight's workshop is to provide an overview of the 24-25 and 25-26 fiscal year operating budget for City Council consideration and direction. Staff will incorporate any changes from tonight's workshop into the final budget, which will be brought back to the City Council for consideration of approval in June. Tonight's workshop agenda includes a high-level operating budget overview and a presentation of the updated 10-year general fund fiscal model. Following that, we will highlight proposed new and significant costs that have been included in this draft budget, and then conclude with a budget watch and next steps discussion. The city prepares an operating budget every 2 years. The budget process started 6 months ago with every city department participating in creating the budget draft. The Budget Ad Hoc Committee held meetings with staff to review both the draft Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, and operating budgets prior to their presentation to the full City Council. The CIP was reviewed by the City Council at a workshop in April and will be considered for adoption later on tonight. All of the capital project expenditures and funding from the CIP have been incorporated into this draft budget. The draft operating budget presented tonight generally carries over existing city services and programs and provides the funding necessary to maintain established service levels. Rather than discussing the continuation of existing services and programs, tonight we will provide the City Council and the public with a high-level overview of the budget with a focus on significant changes, cost increases, and new budgetary requests. This workshop will cover the city's fiscal outlook and how this proposed operating budget fits within the long-term fiscal sustainability plan. After incorporating direction from tonight's meeting, the operating budget will be presented to the City Council for adoption on June 25th. This slide presents a summary of citywide revenue by fund type for 24-25. The total projected revenue is about $306 million. Although we tend to focus on the general fund since it offers the greatest budget flexibility, you can see it is only one component of overall city revenues. Enterprise funds include the city's water, wastewater, and solid waste operations, and those revenues can only be used for those functions. The other revenue sources are restricted for very specific purposes, such as infrastructure or debt service. This slide shows a summary of the citywide expenditures budget for fiscal year 24-25 and totals about $379 million. And we just saw on the previous slide that revenues were $306 million. This difference is not due to anticipated deficits. Rather, large expenditures for capital projects such as Sand Creek Sports Complex, Sand Creek Road Extension, and Lone Tree roadway improvements are expected to incur and are being funded from balances that have been built up over time. Again, the majority of tonight's workshop will focus on the general fund portion of the expenditure picture. I'd like to start the general fund discussion with a quick update on our current year projection. As staff reported At the mid-year budget update in January, the projected year-end result was expected to be about break even after setting aside the 30% reserve and establishing a $1.1 million reserve for a general plan update. Later, at the April CIP workshop, Council gave direction to postpone the general plan update to future years and repurpose the $1 million for future capital projects. After reserving the $1 million for these future capital projects and setting aside the 30% reserve, the current projected 23-24 surplus is expected to be approximately $800,000. Per council policy, half of any actual surplus would be used to pay down unfunded pension obligations, and half would be transferred to the city's budget stabilization fund. Now let's move on to the 24-25-26 two-year budget projection. Historically, the city has adopted operating budgets which include a budgetary deficit of about 4% or around $3 million per year. However, budgetary deficits have always been closed by the end of the fiscal year through budget savings. Savings occur because our budgets are prepared with the assumption that all personnel positions are filled for the entire year and that the full cost of running city programs will be incurred. Personnel vacancies from retirements and turnover typically generate substantial savings in the budget. Additionally, all budgeted program costs may not be incurred. For example, the Parks and Recreation Department budgets for all potential recreation programs, and every planned activity may not occur. Consistent with prior years, the current budget includes annual $3 million budgetary deficits. After factoring a modest budget savings, staff conservatively projects that the actual results from the upcoming 2 fiscal years will be a cumulative surplus of about $1.6 million after setting aside the 30% reserve. I will now turn to a high-level overview of the general fund budget for next fiscal year. Revenues from all sources are budgeted to be about $77 million. Taxes and fines, which include property taxes of about $16 million and sales tax of about $12 million, make up the largest sources of revenue. Property tax is the general fund's #1 revenue source and is budgeted to increase by only 2.6%, reflecting a challenging housing market. Sales tax, the second largest revenue source, is flat in the first year of the budget as price inflation is expected to dampen consumer demand. In the second year, the sales tax budget rises in anticipation of the opening of the new Costco. Other significant revenue sources include transfers from gas tax revenues supporting street maintenance and community facility districts assessments supporting public safety. Included in this chart is about $3.4 million of transfers from the Budget Stabilization Fund to ensure the budget is balanced. However, we do not actually anticipate utilizing those funds. The general fund expenditure budget is proposed to be about $78 million. About 43% of the budget, or $33 million, is in support of police services, followed by about 12% for parks and recreation program and services. Revenues are budgeted at an amount less than total expenditures, as amounts set aside in specific reserves at the end of 23-24 are being used to fund strategic initiatives and other non-recurring costs. The expenditure budget includes a 3% placeholder cost of living increase for personnel costs, budget for 1 additional code enforcement officer, the proposed carryover of certain initiatives from the prior strategic plan, and all of the cost increases and budgetary requests that are included in the workshop memo that accompanied the budget draft. Now I would like to present information on the city's general fund reserves. Per council policy, a reserve of 30% of operating expenditure budget is retained in the general fund for uncertainties or emergencies, and this balance increases $2 million over the 2 budget years as expenditures increase. As mentioned in the previous slide, some expenditures will be offset in 24-25 by specific reserves, including amounts for the Successor agency payment plan, carryover strategic initiatives, and funding of the Brentwood Boulevard capital project with a reserve restricted for this use. As discussed earlier, $1 million has been set aside for use on future capital projects, and the 5th beat implementation reserve is ready for use when needed. There are also amounts being accumulated for a future general plan update and for future redistricting costs. Next, we will transition into a look at the 10-year general fund fiscal model. And the model takes the 2-year budget as a starting point and then uses hundreds of variables and current economic data, forming a 10-year projection of revenues, expenses, and reserves. The city prepares a 10-year model to look at the long-term impacts of proposed budget changes and to ensure a sustainable financial future. The model assists in developing the operating budget, and the budgets being considered tonight are included in this model. It is important to understand that the fiscal model provides an overview of the general financial direction the city is heading. It identifies longer-term trends and potential financial challenges so that adjustments can be made well in advance of potential financial problems. The model is conservative. Results are usually more positive than initial projections, giving us a margin of safety during more challenging economic times. When results have exceeded projections, funds have been utilized to pay down unfunded obligations and for use on priority projects. This chart illustrates a summary of the annual results of the fiscal model projection, showing the balance of the general fund 30% reserve in blue and the budget stabilization fund balance in green. You can see in the chart that the general fund 30% reserve is maintained and grows steadily to $30 million over the 10-year period as expenditures grow. The budget stabilization fund in green plays a key role in the city's long-term forecast. The fund was established to offset rising pension and retiree medical costs over the next decade. At the end of the forecast, about $18 million remains in the fund. This balance will provide flexibility for any unfavorable economic conditions and uncertainty that may occur in the coming fiscal years. Later in the presentation, in the Budget Watch section, details of these potential challenges will be discussed. Key factors included in the fiscal model projection are an increased sales tax revenues from Costco in the second year of the budget, placeholder cost of living increases for expiring labor contracts of 3% per year, increasing funding requirements for pension and retiree medical obligations, more modest development projections, operating costs for new amenities, and higher inflation in the short run. New revenue from potential major developments in areas such as the Innovation Center are not included. I will now highlight new and significant cost increases in the budget. Starting with the general fund, the Community Development Department is requesting one new code enforcement officer. The officer is being requested to assist with current workload, to add capacity to increase enforcement activities in the evenings and on weekends, and for anticipated enforcement activities from new sidewalk vending, mobile vending, and tobacco retailer licensing ordinances. The estimated annual cost for this position is $157,000 with additional one-time vehicle and equipment costs of $43,000. Some prior 2-year strategic plan initiatives will not be completed by the end of the current fiscal year. Economic Development is proposing carrying over unspent budget for the Brentwood Boulevard and Downtown Incentives Initiative into next year to incentivize higher tier, unique businesses and development in these areas. The city-owned parcel plan carryover budget would be used to assist with the disposition of both city and successor agency properties, surplus properties. Finally, Community Development is proposing the carryover of unspent funds for initiatives to develop an implementation plan for the general plan conservation and open space policies and to produce a general plan implementation status. Continuing with new general fund costs, the Parks and Recreation Department's special events budget includes proposed funding for the Juneteenth holiday celebration from the general fund of $25,000 in each fiscal year. The general fund portion of the budget for the Juneteenth celebration would be augmented by $20,000 per year from the priority event funding provided by the Economic Development Grant Fund. So on this slide, it looks like it's all general fund, but it's $25,000 general fund and $20,000 from the Economic Development Grant Fund. The proposed budget also includes a one-time $30,000 cost to replace the 30-foot tree displayed in City Park during the holiday season. The Streets Division is proposing the expansion of the citywide sidewalk repair program at an additional annual cost of about $100,000. The proposed increase in the budget would provide funding for the implementation of a sidewalk inspection program to identify hazards requiring maintenance and provide supplies for city crews to make repairs. In addition, there is a request for a one-time expenditure of $110,000 for a sidewalk repair skid steer to be used by city crews for smaller sidewalk removal and replacement projects. Proposed budgets for utilities in all divisions have increased by about $127,000 in the first year of the budget, and this increase is driven mainly by an expected PG&E rate hike of 10%. The Parks and Recreation Department is requesting an ongoing increase of about $26,000 for contractual services to hold new technology classes at the senior center. In addition, the contractual services budgets have been increased by about $80,000, mainly for increasing landscaping service costs. Included in the 23-24 Parks budget was the purchase of one Ford Ranger. Due to supply chain issues, the purchase of this truck will not be able to be completed by the end of the year. And staff is proposing that the unspent budget of $32,000 be rolled over into next fiscal year and the amount increased to $38,000 to accommodate supply chain and inflationary cost increases that may occur. The Building and Planning divisions are proposing one-time capital expenditures of $75,000 to improve City Hall permit safety. This project would place clear barriers at workstations and along public counters and replace portions of glass in the conference room with solid doors and walls. The city contracts with Contra, Costa County for animal and library services, and the original cost provided by the county for animal services in 24-25 was $781,000. However, responding to feedback from the cities, the budget request was reduced to $703,000, which is still a 24% increase from the prior year. The county funds most of the operational costs of the Brentwood Library. The city contributes funding for additional operating hours beyond those offered by the county, and the costs for these additional hours increased about 26% over the prior year to approximately $127,000. Finally, the county invoices the city for election services based on a rate per registered voter. Included in the city clerk's division is in the first budget year is an estimated cost of $137,000 for these services. There are a variety of contractual services being requested in the operating budget, including a request from the City Clerk's Division for ongoing services of $10,000 per year to process updates to the Brentwood Municipal Code, one-time services of $20,000 to update the citywide document retention schedule, and one-time services of $18,000 to scan historical paper records. In addition, one-time costs in the non-departmental division of $10,000 are being proposed to fence off and close sensitive areas not open to the public. And the Streets Division is proposing a $14,000 annual budget to continue the downtown sidewalk cleaning program. In addition, the Human Resources Department is requesting approximately $48,000 per year to provide dedicated resources and centralized efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion recruitment and advertising for all vacant city positions. The budget draft includes the renewal of a $28,000 annual contribution to the Family Justice Center. And while this contribution is not new or an increase from the prior year, it is included in this presentation for transparency. I will now move on to discussing the budgets for the city's 3 enterprise operations providing water, wastewater, and solid waste services. User fees providing revenue for these operations are set in accordance with Proposition 218. Rate studies are performed periodically to ensure that rates are sufficient to cover the costs, and the City Council adopted new 5-year rate studies last year. Staff has compared year-to-date revenues through April 2024 to the same time period last year in each enterprise to ensure that revenue projections in the rate study are holding true. After accounting for increased water and dumpster volumes, revenues on all 3 enterprises are tracking to within 1% of the approved rate adjustments. Staff will continue to monitor enterprise revenues and expenditures and provide updates as part of the midterm budget review process. Included in the budget are 8 new enterprise positions. The proposed increase of 5 positions in wastewater operations would enable a new lateral repair program ensuring that aging connections from residences and businesses to the sewer system are maintained with an ongoing salaries and benefit costs of $733,000 and about $597,000 in one-time equipment and technology costs. There are 2 new equipment operator positions proposed for solid waste operations. 1 position is needed for growth in collection routes and 1 position to reduce the number of limited service positions. The request includes an ongoing salaries and benefits cost of $296,000. The final position being proposed is a geographic information systems technician whose cost would be divided among the water, wastewater, and solid waste funds. And this position would provide support for new state regulatory reporting requirements and maintenance of the city's GIS infrastructure, with an ongoing salaries and benefit costs of $165,000. The majority of the personnel costs for the new positions were included as placeholder costs in the 5-year rate study adopted last year, so no adjustments to rates would be necessary for the new positions. Now we'll cover new costs included in the budget for the water enterprise. Specifically, a budget increase is being requested for regulatory reporting software needed to comply with new state and federal monitoring regulations with a one-time implementation cost of $196,000 and annual software costs of $79,000. In the second budget year, contractual services costs of $85,000 are proposed for the urban water management plan required to be updated every 5 years. One-time capital costs of $275,000 are proposed to construct a large metal storage structure to house equipment for water distribution and production. The 23-24 water fund budget included $130,000 for the upgrade of a replacement valve turning truck, which is now proposed to be purchased next year. The budget is proposed to increase to $170,000 to accommodate supply chain and inflationary cost increases that may occur. Finally, in the same time frame as the permit center safety project discussed earlier, new cameras are proposed to be installed in the utility billing lobby at a one-time cost of $21,000 that would be shared equally among the water, wastewater, and solid waste funds. At this point, I will move on to a discussion of other funds. In the Agricultural Administration Fund, one-time contractual services cost of $25,000 are being requested for potential tree removal on the proposed Agricultural Innovation Center property and one-time $75,000 budget for legal services for a potential Agricultural Innovation Center agreement. In the Agricultural Land Fund, carryover of $175,000 in unspent Agricultural Business Program Strategic Initiative budget is proposed to allow completion of the directional wayfinding and signage for local farmers project and the continuation of the Farm to Fork program in 24-25. After including all of the above proposed expenditures and subtracting $2.2 million for the Agricultural Innovation Center previously identified by the City Council and taking into account funding already approved for a harvest time staff and marketing plan, the remaining available balance in both funds is estimated to be $920,000. The Capital Infrastructure Fund is used for non-residential development related infrastructure projects with a focus on projects that may promote economic development. Included in the proposed budget of $2.2 million for economic development program incentives, which estimates the estimated total balance available in the fund. Of the available balance, $1.4 million is unspent economic incentive policy/program strategic initiative budget carried over from the prior year. Although the entire $2.2 million available balance would be budgeted, any individual economic incentive greater than $100,000 would require City Council approval under the Council's Economic Development Incentive Policy. Any unspent balance at the end of the first budget year would be proposed to roll over to the next year as an amendment in the midterm budget process. Continuing with other funds, an increase in expenditure budget in the vehicle fund of $84,000 is requested to roll over unspent budget from 23-24 into the next fiscal year with an increase to $115,000 to accommodate potential cost increases. One-time software implementation costs of $77,000 and annual ongoing software costs of $18,000 are being requested in the Fleet Maintenance Fund to allow for compliance with new regulatory reporting and more efficient and effective maintenance of the fleet. Consistent with the prior two-year budget, staff is recommending supplemental one-time pension paydown payments of $2.5 million in 24-25 and $1.5 million in 25-26 from the Budget Stabilization Fund. In 24-25, $1 million of the $2.5 million payment would be transferred in from other city funds with personnel allocations as their fair share contribution to paydown. These payments would reduce unfunded pension obligations, resulting in reduced costs over the long term. Before concluding, I would like to cover economic and legislative issues that may have an outsized impact on our future budgets. The U.S. economy is expected to transition to a lower GDP growth rate in late 2024 and early 2025 as consumer demand fades and higher interest rates may limit business and residential investment. While it seems nobody can accurately predict a recession, there is considerable uncertainty which could be made worse by rising geopolitical tensions. After reaching a 4-decade high of just under 8% in 2022, inflation has moderated in recent months to a rate of 3.5%. Unfortunately, this is still well above the Federal Reserve's long-term target of 2%. While the city's budget includes expenditure increases with a factor for inflation, persistently high long-term inflation would have a significant impact on the budget as the city has very little control over revenue increases. The budget includes placeholder cost of living increases for personnel salaries of 3%. With labor costs making up almost 2/3 of the general fund budget, the outcome of labor negotiations could have a significant impact on the city's financial forecast. At the time of the publication of this budget, there was some uncertainty about the timing of the Costco opening. Recent developments provide a very positive outlook on the location opening sooner than anticipated in the budget. The city's future pension and retiree medical costs are heavily dependent on CalPERS investment returns, and when they miss their target, CalPERS increases the city's contribution to make up for the shortfalls. And finally, the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act ballot measure secured enough signatures for inclusion on the November 2024 general election ballot. The act would adopt new and stricter rules for raising revenues and fees and make it more difficult to defend these revenues in court. The governor and the legislature filed a challenge with the California Supreme Court in fall of 2023, arguing that the measure should be removed, and a decision is expected by the end of June 2024. Should the measure remain on the ballot and be approved, there would be significant negative impacts to the city's operations and core service delivery. To wrap up, the next steps in the budget process will be the presentation of the final CIP budget for consideration of adoption later on tonight's agenda. Staff will bring back the final operating budget, including any direction received tonight, back to you for consideration of approval on June 25th. And the next review of the city's fiscal condition and budget will be in January 2025 at the mid-year review. I'd like to thank the City Council and the Budget Subcommittee for their input and direction in helping create this document before you tonight. I appreciate your attention. Thank you. And this concludes my presentation. And at this time, staff would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Christine. Are there any clarifying questions of staff? Councilman Norwood.
Can you go back to slide number 9?
Sure.
And I think this is, as opposed to a question, more of a discussion for us here on the dais. But the general plan update that we had discussed back in January and voted, I think back in January, it was 5-0 for the general plan update, and we set aside the 1.1 or $1.3 million, yes? Then at the last council meeting, we decided that the wall at Somerset may had taken some priority, so we moved some of the money, we moved $1 million of that fund into the future capital projects. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then we also decided in that meeting to push the general plan update back to maybe 2028 or somewhere. I'm not necessarily all that comfortable with that. I would like to see if we could do the general plan update maybe as soon as planning had the bandwidth to be able to do that. But to make that happen, we would have to move that $1 million back into the general plan update to be able to afford to do that. Is that correct? When I initially started looking at the budget, I was looking at $800,000 extra in the budget that we were going to use to pay down the retirement obligations, et cetera. But if we still take that $800,000, move it back into the future capital projects, move the $1 million into the general plan update, we could accomplish both at the same time. But during agenda review today, I had learned some information that maybe you could share with everybody.
Yes. So we have been working on providing updates to the HOA, and in following up with our engineer who did the structural study on the wall, Woods Rogers, they indicated that they thought the wall has more time before it needs to be replaced than what we had understood previously. And they forecasted that if you start preparing now and saving money towards in the next 5 years, we should have enough to replace the wall at that point. They're also going back to look at some other potential solutions and materials, et cetera, and are going to provide us some more feedback on that. And so that was some information I shared today, that there could be more time on the wall than what we had previously thought. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, which would be the same idea if we took the future capital projects $1 million, moved it back into the general plan update, moved that forward to occur as soon as planning had the ability to make that happen, because I know there's 10 million things already on your plate, and you're not going to be able to get to it right away. Once you do get to it, it's going to take a couple years to finish anyway. Yes? So, and then the money we were going to continue to put into the general plan update, now put into the future capital projects and fund that so that we could help with the wall should we need to do that.
I think we should move that to discussion, right? That's not a question, that's kind of a discussion, because I mean,
Well,
right?
right?
Okay. So I do have some questions. And I don't know if you were done with that, or do you have more questions?
It's fine.
No, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, you're good.
Okay. Fifth beat, how are we doing on there? And what are your monthly budget savings by not being fully staffed yet?
That I would have to defer to Carrie on, or Christine maybe, on exactly what we're saving. But it appears every time we go to get close to being staffed in order to even start considering the fifth beat, we take 2 steps backwards. We're on a treadmill going nowhere fast. So at this point, I have the 5 in field training. I've got 3 laterals that are currently in the background process moving forward. If we get those on board and we get everybody out of field training and nobody retires or nobody leaves to another agency or nobody else gets hurt, then we'll be closer to starting the discussions, because then we'll be down 2 positions at that point if we can get there. So basically, I don't foresee us having the fifth beat, any type of even discussion about it until at least June or July, when we start getting all these new recruits out of field training.
So if that all works out, then you could be fully staffed by end of year, you think, or no?
if the laterals work out and they get on board, they pass field training, and then we get 2 more laterals to come over, theoretically, we could be fully staffed by June, but we also have to play in the factor of I've got 2 out on injury that will determine. And then if we don't have any other injuries between now and then, knock on wood, we should stay fully staffed or get to closer to that fully staffed point. So at least with the benefits, I don't know if Christine can answer what that would look like as far as salary savings goes in our budget.
I'm just doing a quick back of the napkin. If you asked for like a monthly amount, I'm thinking somewhere like 70,000 a month for 5 full positions,
70,000?
roughly. I mean, I can get you the exact figure.
No, that just ballpark is good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then that's the 5 fifth beat positions, but of course we might have more vacancies than that. Again, you know, our savings rate this year was like in the 9% range, which is really high. And a lot of that was also police department, heavily weighted for the general fund. I mean, we've had retirements and other things, but I can give you the exact amount after the meeting.
Thank you. My other question is, why are we pulling 20,000 of Juneteenth out of the economic development grants and not of the general fund? Whose decision was that?
I believe that was council direction on priority events, the priority event staff report, perhaps during.
No, I don't recall us ever giving direction to pull 20,000 out for Juneteenth.
So a correction should be made if you would like it. I don't believe I informed Christine properly based upon the decision from LUD, if I remember correct. Or I forget if it was a city council meeting or a LUD meeting where the discussion was related to that, or the priority projects. Actually, it was city council. And so it just has not been updated. And I think she was going off of the old information that we provided when we submitted the budget documents. So,
Actually, I was gonna, that was one of my questions. This, the present slides, thank you, hi Christine. The slides on page 15 says something different than what the memo says. So the slides actually says that the whole 45,000 comes out of the general fund, but then the memo says 25 and 20. And so that was my question, which one is it? Because if we're gonna approve a budget, I would prefer it to come out of general fund money, but we can talk about that in discussion then.
Yeah, we could, okay.
All of it, all of it, yeah.
Perfect,
Mhm.
yeah.
But
And
I
we
mean,
can
it's
absolutely
something-
take that direction, and I apologize. I know, I was trying to give the context of the whole amount and didn't put 2 and 2 together with the header on my slide.
It's all
So-
good. It's Darren's fault. He just accepted it. Just go with it, run with it.
My other question was the community enrichment position. We had talked about it during our budget subcommittee, that it is a evening and weekend position, if it's something that we were interested in approving. So I just want to make sure that that's not an overtime.
Seasonal needs like weed abatement, or like we're doing right now for pop-up and sidewalk vendors, because around Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, that comes up. So we do seasonal enforcement, for an example. But this position is not envisioned to be assigned just to nights and weekends, because that's not our biggest need in the department, and that wouldn't add the most value for the city.
So nights and weekends, you're saying would add the most value?
No, being assigned only to nights and weekends would not add the most value, so that's not how it's envisioned.
Okay, so how does that budget work? Because if I'm budgeting just a regular head count, and then is it considered overtime when they go out on nights and
So-
weekends? I guess that's my question.
Okay, so we have the ability to do flexible scheduling. So it's only overtime if they exceed their normal 8 hours in the day or the 9 hours for theirs. So depending on our workload and volume. So right now, for example, with only 4 officers, nights and weekends might incur more overtime because we just have so much work to do. If we have additional capacity, we have more opportunity to do flex scheduling where they come in later and stay later. Or if they work a weekend, they flex during the week to avoid overtime. I'm not saying they'll never incur overtime. It's really depends on the volume, but we try and avoid overtime if we can.
Okay. I have another question, and it's budget related because of the way the money is here. But tomorrow night, we are discussing a micro business launch program where staff is asking for almost $10,000 out of the grant program. I don't want that coming out of the grant program. I'd like to move that into the regular budget. So I would assume that's you, Darren? I understand why you need it.
so tomorrow's a LUD meeting where I think you'll discuss all of the grant applications.
But I need to give you budget direction tonight, right?
So if the council wants to put money towards that, yes, that would be the way to do it,
Okay.
Councilmember.
So I just want to make sure we could do that. And it's also because it's a budget kind of question. How does your micro business launch program differ from the small business development in-person coaching that the chamber is asking for? Because I've read the descriptions and they sound very similar, almost like you guys are doing similar things, or are you not?
No, not at all. The one project is a small business development center project. So the SBDC is a federal program. The current program is based out of CSU East Bay, I believe. And so they oversee a certain area. So they have staff, and in order for communities to partner with them, they bring in business consultants that help on a variety of issues. The Economic Development Grant program that'll be on the agenda for LUD is specifically the city council asks for a program that might help out street vendors that were impacted due to the new ordinance. So with the new ordinance, although fees have not been totally determined yet by the council, a street vendor will need insurance. They'll need a certificate from the city, and they also need insurance. And so the city council, I wouldn't say they gave direction, but one of the questions during that time was, hey, might we have a program that could help out these small street vendor businesses that are residents of our community? And I assume that's somewhere in $600 to $1,000 per business. So that is the grant program that'll be before you tomorrow in LUD, and that's what the request was.
Okay, and then I have a lot of, I guess I have questions. I want to shift CIP delivery times. Do we do that? I will do that during discussion then. Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any further clarifying questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I'm going to get closer to the mic. One of the questions I had was around the conservation open space out of the general plan. I know when we talked about doing that, when we talked about making some of those improvements that were not going to be an actual full-on program, it was going to be kind of the low-hanging fruit. That's a significant amount of money that's going to be dedicated to that. So I would like a little bit more information about how that breaks down.
Certainly. So that was carried over from the previous fiscal year. So we definitely talked about low-hanging fruit, and that's what staff is working on right now, that component, working with Weblative to put together some information for the public on what the city's already doing. So that should be relatively cost-effective. I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, I'm sorry, but I can get back to you. There were the other programs that we could also implement in there that had certain line items of cost with them, 15,000 here, 20,000 there. And while those were still relatively low-hanging fruit, there's just more of a cost associated with those. So unfortunately, because of our workload this year, all we've been able to really work on is the Weblative piece with what the city's already doing. So our request would be to carry over the funds, if council's willing, to allow us to continue to do that over the next year. And I apologize, I'm not prepared with that spreadsheet, but I can certainly give you an idea of what those prioritized items were. They were still the simplest, the relatively simpler ones, but there is a cost just to implement them, either through consultants or maybe a new, what's the word I'm looking for, resolution or ordinance from the city's perspective. So they're relatively straightforward. They're just no cost.
Okay, got it. At one point, will we be able to have some sort of a staff report on what that's going to look like, what those items are going to be?
So given... And certainly we can have that discussion with council if they'd like us to move it up. But given everything that's on our plate this summer, I'm thinking that's more of a fall item because we have to get through, we have about 6 to 10 projects right now that are hopefully going to be wrapped up by the fall. They're all kind of coming to a head this summer. So we would like to come back and sort of revisit what that spreadsheet, to make sure we're still on the same page about those priorities.
Yeah. Great. I think that's going to be really good. I know this is one of those, like the adaptive recreation planning, that it's a long, drawn-out process. And again, the low-hanging fruit first, and then we kind of prioritize after that. So I saw that the adaptive recreation planning is in there too. So Bruce, it was kind of an afterthought. It was a footnote. Can you share any updates about where that is? And thank you, Alexis.
Yes, good evening, Council and Vice Mayor. So we are currently planning to bring adaptive recreation back to the council. I think it's planned for later this summer, I think August. So we are doing some work on that. At this point in time, I don't have like a placeholder budget to add to it. And really, until we get that back in front of council, it's hard to put a number or something in there that hasn't been approved yet. So if the council decides to move forward at that time, then we would have to do a budget amendment. Otherwise, we would have to add some kind of placeholder for some funding towards adaptive rec at this time, so.
Okay, thank you. So we'll wait for that discussion then. Regarding the revenues, there was a mention, no new revenue from potential major developments at the streets of Brentwood. And I realize Barnes & Noble and Axes and Ales and all the ones that we've got in the works are not necessarily huge projects with huge amounts of revenues, but we're not counting those at all. Do they collectively add up to potentially enough to be able to add those?
So what we do is we get the best information we have from our sales tax consultants. And when we see something that gets much closer to like a target date, obviously Costco is so material, right, that we're going to add that. But every 6 months, we get information from our sales tax consultants. And as something gets more realistic, they can add that into their estimates. And we would bring that back at mid-year, midterm, and add that into the general fund budget as it becomes more certain.
Okay.
So we're
sense.
conservative. So
Yeah.
we won't want to tell you that happens and something happens, we don't have that money to spend. But we don't have to wait till the next 2-year budget. We'll bring it every 6 months.
Okay, thank you. The library was mentioned at adding up to 26% over the prior year. And I was interested about what that's going to relate to.
So it's just what we're bringing before you is costs that have gone up like more than a regular COLA, right? So just to bring it to your attention, it's the 12 additional hours that we're paying for above the 40. And the county takes their costs and they basically say, these are our costs. We're kind of passing them on to you for the additional 12 hours, mainly personnel. And
Okay.
so it's just more of an FYI as opposed to a decision point, again, bringing forward anything that's outside of like a normal COLA.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is around the sale of surplus land. Not necessarily included in here. It's not I mean, we don't have an estimate, of course. Like, is there a line saving kind of, I mean, how does that work?
So we didn't include any revenue for any surplus land sales in the next 2-year budget. I think that my understanding is that the process is a little bit more elongated and there's more regulation around it. Because of the uncertainty of timing, we're kind of omitting it. And so it would be an upside, again, every 6 months that we could bring back to you. But our understanding is from Darren's office that it's just too difficult to say when or how much we would get. But of course, we want to keep the budget for appraisals and for moving it forward. But again, we'll bring back the upside as soon as we're made aware, right? Like if we know something's going to sell in the second half of the year, we'll bring it to you in January at our update.
Okay, thank you. That answers all of mine. Thanks.
And Vice Mayor, can I just have one thing? As
Absolutely.
relates to surplus land, many of the properties are actually former redevelopment agency parcels. So if the city sold it, for $100, we'd only get $16.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's some properties that were purchased with other type of revenue, and those funds will go there. For example, one was purchased with traffic impact fees and road improvements. So that would not come back to the general fund. It would be placed in a restricted fund. So
Thank you,
as
Darren.
much as there might be some revenue, don't want the council thinking that it's just coming all to the general fund.
Right, thanks very much.
If there are no further clarifying questions of staff, at this time we'll open public comments.
At this time, the public present in the chambers and on Zoom are permitted to address the council on this workshop item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comment from those in the chambers, followed by those participating via Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired. We received no written public comments on this item. I do have one speaker card in person. Nick?
Thank you for the time. I know that the report from Woods and Rogers says there's no imminent danger of the wall. There's a couple of locations on the wall that are serious, and I think will provide that information to Bruce, that they can look at them, and we're just concerned about those particular locations. I don't know if the architectural firm actually went inside the premises to look at some of those.
Thank you.
I have no additional speaker cards and there's no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. At this time, we will close public comments, move into council discussion. Council member.
First of all, I want to say thank you for sending the presentation, the PowerPoint. I really appreciate that before a meeting. And thank you for all of your hard work, Carrie. Thank you. I think I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think Tony and I really appreciate the budget subcommittee. It really does help to understand. There's a couple of things. I would like the $20,000 of Juneteenth to come out of general fund, not out of the economic grants. I would like to $10,000 that you're asking to help small business grants to come out of general funds, not out of the economic grants. We just heard, I think it's $70,000 a month savings for police, and they're not fully, so we'll have a couple of months worth of $70,000. So I think there's going to be some savings there that we could leverage. So a couple of things on parks that are going on, and I CC'd you on these emails, I think, yeah. I was taken by a resident to drive around the parks over on the east side of town, and I've never driven to the parks over there. My kids were little. I went to the parks on my side of town. I never went over there. And I was actually taken aback at the condition of some of the parks. I'm happy to hear that Homecoming is on the list to be repaired in 24-25. I would also, you can see it from everywhere. There's a half a basketball court that needs to be refinished. It looks awful. It's actually pretty depressing. So I was wondering if we could add a replacement. I mean, you're already doing the park area, so I'm hoping that we can actually do the half basketball court, resurfacing that. I don't know how much that would be, but that would be something I'd be interested in adding to the list. I know one of the things that the kids on the west side of town really get to enjoy is the basketball hoop over by Willie's. That's on Balfour, and that's because they go out at 10. It's not near houses, so they get to enjoy it. And the one on Homecoming it's not really that close to home, so I was wondering, one of the things that they said is, why do the kids on the other side of town get to play basketball late at night, but we don't? Do they think we're up to something? And that kind of broke my heart. Like, are we sending a message that we shouldn't be sending by doing things for some people that are more socioeconomically well off than other people, or people that have been here for a long time don't get that other people do? So I'd like to explore getting lights there, what the impact on the neighbors would be. And I'd like to even just put a placeholder on a budget for that if we can, I know it's going to come back to us, and this is depending on how the rest of council feels. This is the other park that I had a lot of concerns about was Windsor Way. And shame on me, because I had never been out to those parks. And that one is scheduled for 26-27, $211,000. I want to pull that up to happening ASAP. I think the CIP says that it hasn't been looked at since 1999. That park is in huge disrepair. The basketball courts need to be redone. That one's a little too close to houses. I don't know if we can add, I read your email and it is pretty close. I don't know if the neighbors would want kids there playing until wee hours of the night. I don't know. But if we could move that up and add on the basketball court, I think that would be great. Do you know ballpark how much it costs to refinish a basketball court?
We are looking into that right now, so I don't have those ballpark numbers. But we are looking at some resurfacing of some courts, so we are looking into that. So we'll have better information probably by the next staff meeting or council meeting. I would imagine it's in the $50,000 to $200,000 range to do some courts. So, but that's kind of off the top of my head.
How much
We're not talking millions of dollars, but
yeah, how much was the
definitely
pickleball court?
thousands.
Because that's kind of
The entire pickleball court was in the $350,000
okay. And how many courts is that? The pickleball? Is it just one
That
court?
was 4 courts, but that also included that was a much more substantial project.
So 4 courts, 300,000, okay.
Yeah, for example, we did also put in a new basketball court at Creekside as well. So, and that cost included those 4 pickleball courts and the basketball court.
Okay. My other question is, who's in charge? Is the resident in charge of painting the walls on Guerin, those white walls? Because they're all like really, really dingy, and I don't know is it the city's responsibility on the side of the street of Guerin, or is that the resident? Because if the resident starts painting them, they're all going to be different. So who owns that painting of those walls?
We'd have to look into that. I don't have that information here.
Okay.
today.
I think that's, I mean, right now, I don't think we need to do the general update anytime. I don't think it needs to be soon. I would rather, if we have extra money, get the ball rolling on the amphitheater and get that done. If we have extra money, there's other stuff that I'd rather put it on. And the safety of the wall is first at Somerset. I don't understand, like, there's a discrepancy in what we're hearing as a council versus what they're seeing as residents. And I think we really need to, I actually need to get your number because I want to go walk it. But I think we need to do, as a council, and I don't want to, I mean, it's paper pushing, right? There's paper pushing, which is a general update. We're required to do it every, certain years. I don't think we need to do it yet. And then there's resident-facing projects. And I just think that we always focus on these things that we have to do that's paper. And if we can put those off to do resident-facing projects, I would rather do right now. I mean, if we were at the thing about the general update, it's changing every freaking day. We're going to update it. We're going to have to update it the next year again because the laws are all going to change. They keep changing constantly. So I don't know. I'd rather do the customer, and I say customer because I worked retail my whole life, the customer-facing projects if we can. I know we're going to have to do the general plan update, but if I were to force rank, safety of a wall is first, and then let's get the amphitheater done because that's been around since 2014. Let's get things done that, let's start checking stuff off. But I understand where you're coming from, but that's my feedback on the things that I wanted to change.
Just if you don't mind, just adding to, I agree 100% safety first. We've just set up to what we're going to do with at least the first phase of the amphitheater, which isn't going to happen next week. We're going to have to get through all of that. There is some surplus there, a considerable amount of surplus left over from what we've already started on.
On the amphitheater?
On the amphitheater.
I thought we were in a deficit. No, we have a major deficit, right?
From what we've approved so far, which is
We haven't
$3
approved
million,
anything
$4
so
million, and we're at $9 million sitting in that budget.
No, I think we said, no, we actually are not, because I think we sent them back, but they didn't even know how much it was going to be because the concrete's probably way more expensive. So they were going to come back. We are not short. We're actually
We
probably
don't
in a
have anything
deficit.
approved yet. So, yeah.
Okay, so I agree 100%, safety first. But should that wall be in the disrepair that I'm hearing tonight that it's in, and we have to make it happen sooner, then absolutely, we're going to find the money to make that happen. I also think that the general fund or the general plan update needs to be done, and I agree 100%. The state laws are going to change every 6 months, every 5 months, every time they get a different idea in their head to change it. But the longer we put it off, the more outdated we are. So we're outdated by 10 years now. Let's wait another 3. There's 3 more years of laws that have changed that we're further behind. If we update it now, at least we're caught up to where we're at now, and we can work from that.
So I have to chime in with some agreements with both parties, and then I have my own additional additions. So feeding onto the discussion, one of the things that I want to look at is I absolutely believe that the Juneteenth fund should come from the general fund, the full $45,000, not from the economic development grant for the 20K. And so my recommendation tonight was that we would go to pull $45,000 for Juneteenth from the general fund. Also, I wanted to discuss that, some other possibilities, but I'd like to go to what Councilmember Orlemans. I said from day one, I think that we should be working on the general fund now. I think that if we keep pushing out, we're gonna go too far. And I would like to start our process of the general fund, so I don't think we move those funds. We have, general plan, I'm sorry, general plan. General. The general plan, we work on the general plan, thank you. Now, get that process started. It's gonna be some time before we get fully into it. We do have the means to, we have the, on slide number, 7, we have the 2-year cumulative surplus. So for the wall, I don't think we push the wall back either. I think we do a CUP for the wall because we don't quite know who's paying for what, when, and where on the wall. We don't know if we're gonna have to create some type of co-payment or co-sharing for the wall. So I think in the meantime, we know what we do need to pay for. I think we still do our analysis. We do not push the wall off, especially with, concerns that residents are bringing to us, for safety concerns. And I appreciate the update, but I think we also, there's not money for it in other spaces. I don't think we take it from the general fund. So my vote would be to go back to what we originally budgeted for, which was to have the general fund that was the $1 million allotted for the general fund versus the breaking up of the $300,000 over 3 years to finally get to the general fund and implement it 6 years from now. That would be my second ask. So we got Juneteenth general fund, we got general plan, get my generals right. General plan now, that we add the wall to the CUP and carve out money or reserve funds for the wall. And it's hard because we don't even know what the cost of the wall is going to be. But then I also have 2 other asks. One of them is I would like to, I think it was on page number, I had it written down. Anyway, in the memorandum, there was a specific ask for HR for DEI recruitment funds for $48,000. I would like to increase the amount for HR. My specific ask in having several meetings in the Debbie committee is that there may be the necessity for a diversity, or I'm so tired of people get so caught up on diversity that now diversity is the bad word that Black people are using to make people, forcing us to do equity training. So I want to say an equity officer or equity analyst that will work with our city to work on diversity strategies, to work specifically with everything DEI, DEIB in all departments, to do some strategic planning with each department head. And so I would ask for us to come up with a funds to cover the salary and benefits in addition to some type of evaluative study as to what that job title looks like. So is it someone who reports to HR? Is that someone who reports to city council? So that would be my ask tonight. My other ask is that we carve out and make a reserve for funds to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies for the citywide. So that one would be my other ask. Other than that, I think those were all of mine that I had to add to discussion.
How, can I ask a question about, sorry. And that's also, how do you feel about it's 10 grand for economic development coming out of the grant and into the general fund for the small business grants?
So I didn't read enough on that to really have an opinion about it, to be honest.
Okay,
It's for tomorrow and I didn't, but it's $10,000
Yeah.
for, can you
So
elaborate?
They put in there for the city of Brentwood to get 10,000 for small business grants, which I'm all about the small business grants, but I kind of want to move that and just make that part of your ongoing operations and economic development, not coming out of the grants that we've been using for events.
Did you want to add something? Well, with that brief little snippet before I review it for tomorrow, I have no objections to it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't know how you all feel.
Vice Mayor?
Oh, we can vote later.
Thank you. Javier, your mic's, okay. Definitely agree about the Somerset Wall. I do want to know, though, I think, because there's this discrepancy about whether it's safe now, how long it can last, I certainly hope staff is going to arrange to meet with the gentleman who just spoke to go out there and take a look at the wall, the specific parts of the wall that he's talking about, so we can make sure that there isn't any imminent danger. And while we're going through this process of planning, I do think in discussing the adaptive recreation planning, that's another thing that's been pushed out, brought back several times. And I'm thinking probably when that comes back, I would like to suggest a budget amendment, but I'm not going to do it yet because, again, it's another one of those planning processes where we've been talking about the low-hanging fruit, the things that are, the less expensive but still higher priority. So I want to look at the planning first before making any kind of recommendation on that.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
So in our agenda review, that was one of my concerns, was the adaptive recreation. What came up was that specific items that come up in the, what is it, Tuesday morning? Is it, when you pulled up Tuesday morning, there were, the Monday morning? Yeah, Monday, one day of the week on there on the website where it shows all of the stuff that came up under adaptive recreation, that each item may already have a budget line that it comes from. So one may come out of the enterprise fund, one may come out of this. It'd be nice to get the numbers back when you all come back the next time to us. Specifically, this is for Parks and Rec to know, because we still haven't gotten it, and we're now a third bite at the apple to kind of plug in the actual numbers for what's missing, and then see what bucket it falls. It makes it difficult for us, though, sitting here planning. So one of the frustrations, I don't mean to capitalize on your time,
No, go right
because I'm
ahead.
going right into it, is we are planning a budget. And one of the problems is that we don't have all the numbers or all the facts here, right?
Yeah.
And then later on, we come back and then we don't want to hear, we don't have money for that.
Yeah, and I think this has come up, this particular issue has come up before. I know it's come up in previous councils, but I was thinking about the fact that I in this council's cycle, I brought forward recreation, adaptive recreation and the open space and conservation. And to kind of quote Councilmember Mendoza, I would say definitely the adaptive recreation is more customer service facing than the open space and conservation. Now, I do think they're both really good, strong priorities for health and well-being, but I'm even wondering if maybe we can do some adjustments there once we've got a better idea of what the planning is when that comes back to us. And I agree with everything you said on that. This is some of the things that we're talking about in our age and disabilities friendly community ad hoc committee. We'll be talking more about that on Thursday. So I'd like to be able to say on Thursday when people are asking about adaptive recreation, if they do, that we are going to have some potential discussions later on this year and know a little bit more about how we can do some planning. I am not as concerned about the general plan being updated in the short term, given what we've seen with other cities and what their planning is. I don't consider it as big of a priority. The hard thing is to see all of these different buckets, and I know there's very little wiggle room bucket to bucket. I work a nonprofit, that's a big deal. So I know we have to be careful about what we can take from and move and all of that, but I think as far as the general plan update, I don't feel the need personally for it to be an immediate thing. I certainly understand the idea of doing some long-term planning, and when I say long-term, I don't mean 10 years down the road, when it's reasonable. I know we've got all of these other things that we're putting into place to protect ourselves and the zoning and the design standards and all of those things. So I'm not freaked out about the general plan being done immediately. But I mean, I think that's just going to have to be up for discussion because I think we're kind of torn on that. Maybe, I don't know if we have enough information about at this exact moment what the timing typically is, where we are in the process, if there's any danger from putting it off another year or two or whatever it is. So were there other issues that were a question? Yeah, the amphitheater, for sure would like to see what that looks like when it comes back. Again, it's another decision we can't really make tonight because we don't have all the facts, because we did ask everyone to come back and give us some other options for planning on that as well. I don't think I have, oh, one more thing, actually. I was thinking about this during our discussion. What is the total cost for redistricting in 2030? Do we know that?
We're putting away $25,000 a year. I'd have to do some really quick math, but I think it's somewhere around $250,000.
Okay, because it seemed like we're not We're putting
we're-
away 25? It looked like more when I was looking.
It's on this, we have 100,000 in 24, 125 in 25, and 150 in 26. So it's $25,000
Got it.
a year, which I think times 10 years is 250.
Okay. And then I guess one other thing that was coming up when we were talking, we talked about the Family Justice Center. Are there other MOUs, existing MOUs that are taking a chunk from the budget?
There were, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. I know that there was a couple that were approved by council. So if they've already been approved by council, I'm not putting them in here, and
Okay.
I'm very sorry, I can't.
No, that's okay.
Oh, Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels was one of them. Family Justice Center. There used to be Delta Community, but that's no longer.
Right.
And I'm trying to think if there's another one, but I think that's
Okay.
the whole
Fair
of
enough.
them.
Thank you.
How does everyone feel about, the park, the Windsor Way being moved up? I mean, with payroll savings alone, I think it'll be worth it to move that one up till now to this fiscal, and then, and the 2 basketball
I have
courts.
no issues with it.
Okay,
Me either.
so I think, okay, sorry, go ahead, Joel.
Well, just to tag on to that, I have spent some time over playing ball in the half-court park, and I agree. I'd like to see, look into see about getting some lighting there. It is quite a ways away from any residential. The other one, I think we need to look into as well. But my main concern regarding putting off the general plan update is the cost, frankly. It is going to be extremely expensive, and it's going to be very, very intensive as far as working with what we have to adapt to, the changes that we know are coming. And so I just want to be really careful to make sure that we have what we need when we need it. We generally, the general plan should be about a 20-year document. Ours has about 5 or 6 years left on that, I believe.
It's 10 years old this year.
Oh, it's 10 years old. Okay. So we've got another 10 years. But I don't want to start gutting the process too much, because really, frankly, we don't know what additional costs that are going to be skyrocketing. We don't know how that's going to deal with it. So although we have 10 years before that tool is supposed to be redone, it's something that I want to keep an eye on.
Some of the conversations was that we should do it a little sooner than the 20-year period. It was like 15 years were some of the estimates that we were given in some of our staff meetings. But also, when you talk about costs, consulting fees, everything, all of them are going up high. So you're absolutely right. My concern is that we spend money because our general plan is not updated. So we spend additional funds for outside consulting or to update certain areas that we can do it holistically and all together in our general plan. So that's additional cost. That's the thing that I keep thinking about. If we put it off, we're just putting Band-Aids on something that we can fix larger. We can do everything. Am I correct in that? When we do the general plan amendment, we can fix some of our other issues that we need updating in a large thing, update, right. Versus we put little Band-Aids, we fix this area, we fix that area, and we can probably do it all in one big soup.
I think there's a lot of logic there. It may not be entirely consistent, but if you do it all at once, you can save more money than if you do it piecemeal, for sure. But I think it might be important, maybe Alexis could just share that the general plan is more than just land use, which I think is what everybody thinks it is. It's also about circulation and emergency services planning, noise, and all kinds of other elements. What are some of the other chapters? Circulation, open space. So there are other things that also could use some update as well.
I think my concern is that I would love to see the design standards, the zoning update, things we've been promised for years, and those haven't happened yet. And now we're adding something else. So I guess that's part of my concern too, that I haven't vocalized. I'm afraid that there's things that we keep saying we're going to get done, and then Tim says, we don't have the bandwidth, we're too busy. So is adding the general plan going to move back all of these other things that we really need to get done?
No, if it starts in the next 12 to 18 months. So if you told me to start it today, then I might start crying. But the goal is to have the objective design standards, the the focus zoning ordinance update done this calendar year. Other things will be done this calendar year, which is why we may have space this fall to revisit the conservation and open space. But we can't do everything all at once, right? So I would never recommend or suggest that we start a general plan update if I didn't think we would have the capacity at that time, which is why we're kind of going at this backwards, because we're starting with the budget and not sort of the visioning and the discussion that I would have had with council to talk about the priorities and whether this was a council priority. But I, as the director, would never recommend that we start it until we have the capacity to do it. And I believe in the next 12 to 18 months, we will have the capacity to do it because all these other projects have to be done. Over the next 12 to 18 months, we're also implementing the housing element because there are policies and programs in the housing element that we have to get done per our commitments to HCD. So that is going to be on our plate once the zoning ordinance update and the ODS finish. So we still have a huge amount of work over the next 2 years. But depending on what other council priorities come our way, other future agenda item requests, right now, if I had a crystal ball, I think we would have capacity in the next 12 to 18 months to start the general plan. It will be a couple-year process or maybe longer, depending on how the community receives it.
So I guess then that to Tim, because you're at the end of the day a city manager, my wish would be that we don't start that until we meet all of our other obligations, like the standardized designs and the zoning update and the conservation plan. Let's make sure we have all of those tick and tied before we move on, because I feel like we keep adding on and some stuff. And I know you guys are busy with all the new laws and the developments that come through and the going back and forth. I know that takes a long time. But the design standards is one I'm really excited about. And like, I keep being afraid that we're gonna get ugly development. So I'm like, have anxiety over that not getting done. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. So my only ask is that you just keep us abreast of what's going on with all of the projects. And let's make sure that those other things that we've already promised happen. The other thing is, when it comes to the wall, I think we have $800,000. So can we put those $800,000? We'd love to put it towards pension and surplus and stabilization, but I don't want to give it up when we might have to do something sooner, right? So can we put that away and earmark that for general fund expenditures? If we don't spend it, then we can do what we want. But I'm just hearing two different, it's like a tale of two cities. Oh, the wall is fine, there's nothing's gonna happen. But then when the Somerset residents come in, there seems to be some, and the ones that I've spoken to, there are concerns. And again, it's, A, B, and then C stories. So if we could put those funds away, that would be much appreciated.
I think everything you're saying with the general plan makes sense. My concern is when it was first brought up to start working on that more immediately, there was a discussion about how the wall could be put off because things were safe. So I'm a little concerned about that juggling of funds. I think the idea of potentially saving that or setting aside that $800,000 would help with that. But I just want to get someone to talk about how that could look if we were able to general plan, wall, all of those things.
So if we could share my screen, I have the general fund reserves still up. And if I'm hearing the council's consensus direction on this, that the future capital project, we could basically make that the $800,000 anticipated surplus. So future capital projects would be 800, and we could have that as earmarked. And then the $1 million currently in the future capital projects would drop down into the general plan update. We'll massage the numbers, it's probably not perfect, but then the general plan update would be like $1.3 million, $1.4 million. So we would basically take $800,000 and add it to all those reserves, so that you would have flexibility on either of those things. The $800,000 projection, if we didn't do this, if we didn't reserve, half of it would go to budget stabilization and half of it would be put against pension pay down. So that's easily done in the budget book to make that happen.
I like that idea. I think that's a great idea. I think that gives us the general plan sooner than later, because I think because I was in the planning meeting with you, Tony, so, and you can correct me if when we say sooner, I don't think Tony means tomorrow. We're talking about next year sometime, possibly, versus us, or 18 months, right? We don't want to make you cry today. But I think that the issue is if we don't make a decision today or talk about it today, then the next thing is the conversation again. And that could be a year to 18 months, which pushes the general plan out 24 to 36 months. So I like that plan. I appreciate that one, with the addition of adding on the moving up the parks, Juneteenth being from the general fund, your 10K, whatever you talking about. Thank you. Homecoming Park. Yeah, I talked about the 2 parks. And I'm also still going to, wasn't much discussion about it, but the 2 requests that I had for diversity, equity, and inclusion, one being the position to carve out some funds in reserve funds to talk about the position, the idea of this position of an equity officer, and then also to roll out some type of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And I did forget to mention when I was talking before that I think this is another one of those, the ad hoc committee that's been doing some work in this area. The last thing we want to do is build a policy in a binder that sits on a shelf and goes nowhere. So I do think that this is a very sensitive issue, but I think that having somebody dedicated to doing the work and supporting the work and making sure it's implemented across the board equitably, I think it's something that we should definitely discuss.
And then the Windsor Way Park, right? Moving that up to this year versus it was, I think, 3 years out, and including the basketball courts and assessing lighting at both the parks as well. And
Well,
and I'll make that motion.
staff can have a couple opportunities. There's a lot of questions, a lot of expressions of concerns, and we want to make sure you answer all your questions. So to the wall, it's not staff's opinion, we're not weighing in. We've hired a structural engineer to do that assessment. So either we trust their credibility or we don't, and they're saying it's fine. And I don't want to disrespect anything the residents are saying about whether they have more concerns than what the science is showing, but this sounds like the wall is stable enough. We can have that consultant come and make a presentation if that would be desirable, so everyone understands the information the same. But we want to make sure it's not staff's opinion, it's a structural engineer's opinion.
Could we, Tim, work with the resident to see the specific areas he's talking about?
Yep.
Just to kind of make sure that.
Yeah, if I believe residents talked to the structural engineer as he was doing his assessment, but Bruce can maybe answer that better. So there was more dialogue during the time of those assessments.
Can we plan a town hall and just like,
Sure.
where they can come in and we can talk about it? Because there's a disconnect. And they're, at the end of the day, the customer, and we're here because of their tax revenue. So let's make sure that we're
Sure.
using their tax revenue as they feel is best within safety. And again, we all said safety is the most important thing.
Correct.
So why don't we just schedule something instead of because I think we all are we don't know what we don't know. And I think we have, them here, but we probably need a lot more people
Sure.
from Somerset.
And potentially the structural engineer could come and present to that group instead of just to the council.
Correct. To the Windsor Way, it might be helpful if we show one of the CIP pages that shows all of the current parks projects being considered in 24-25. And if you add another one to
Yeah, that one's not till 26, 27, but I want that one moved up to 24, 25.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain. So if you move it up, now you have more projects being done in the same fiscal year, unless you want to push one out to create capacity. Otherwise, they're all going to be done on time. And I could just read them off unless I could show my screen.
Well, aquatic complex locker rooms, aquatic
page
complex
58,
mechanical, Egert Park, Homecoming, and Sand Creek Sports.
So all big projects, including maybe the amphitheater may be coming online at some point with some project. That's a lot of projects in 1 year. So if you add one more there, you may want to push one out. That's my recommendation.
I would be fine with moving the locker rooms out. I mean, unless that's absolutely necessary.
That's what I was thinking based on, if it's a safety issue, is it just appearance?
Well, I mean, these are all good questions. If we had in advance, we could have answers tonight. I don't know what the status of the remodeling of the lockers is or how urgent that is. Maybe, Bruce, if you have any insights.
The locker rooms is not a safety issue. It's just more of aesthetics to upgrade the locker rooms. That one's been on there for a while for that purpose. So we could take a look at those projects and reprioritize to work on these improvements that Councilmember Mendoza is mentioning. I will say Regarding the basketball courts, we need to explore the lighting in those areas. We have lights in our community parks that are designed for more community type of play, where we have restrooms, where we have parking. Our parks are open from dawn to dusk. So if we add lighting, then we have an exception to that rule. We also have to look at the environmental impacts of when we put lights where they were not anticipated when the park was built. So there are some things that we need to explore, and that information would have to come back to the council before we added lights. But I just want to make that available now. You have that information that we need to
And that can come
look
back
at those
in June
considerations.
25th, right? All that stuff can come back on June 25th when we,
That information would come back. If we had a CIP project to look at these improvements, then we would bring that information back as part of
And
it.
also, Egret Park, that one was completed in 2017 versus Windsor's 1999, so that's 18 years of difference in parks. So I would put the older park, if I had to choose, versus the 2017 park.
Yes, so our Parks and Rec Commission goes through a prioritization process with our playground replacement program. And we look at how old the parks are, but another thing we look at is use and the safety of those particular amenities in those parks. Sometimes when there's a safety issue, a park gets moved up that priority list. But
Do
we
they
can
go
take a
visit
look
the
at
parks?
Windsor Way and see where we can reprioritize that to
Yeah.
make that sooner.
Because, I mean, it just doesn't look safe at all, the one on Windsor.
I heard a ask from Tim about, can we pull up your screen? And there was a specific one, and he said it was for aesthetics. So I think instead of us coming back and forth to expedite, if it's just aesthetics for a locker room, that's a good ask to pull one up and move one down. So if
Yep.
we can move those up and then just pull the one about locker rooms down, then it might be an easy fix. If it's not for a safety concern or we don't have outdated equipment, and then we'll make the what's forward facing more happy.
That's correct. I think we could
Mhm.
reprioritize and make that change.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate all the council's support because they're in big need. So thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further conversation, do I have a motion?
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just need a couple of clarifying
Yes, please.
things. I just want to make sure there's consensus with everybody on the $45,000 for Juneteenth, to take that out of general fund, to move the $10,000 out of the proposed economic development fund into the general fund. And I wasn't clear on the equity officer and analysis. Councilmember Pearson said that she wanted to have a reserve. That's an ongoing cost, right? That would be an annual ongoing. I want to make sure that there's consensus. And do you want us to come back to you with some proposed costs? Do we have consensus on that? I'm just trying to make sure that.
So my ask is to ask the council for potentially consensus tonight, but I also would ask that you come back on the June, if that's not too soon. When we come back before we solidify everything in the budget, June 25th, council date, so. And then I'll wait for council's consensus or non-consensus.
Agreed.
So you would want to have information on that, but not necessarily included in the budget draft, but we could make that change that night? Okay, I just wanted to be super clear on what you're looking for. And then just a reminder that we are adopting the CIP budget tonight. We are aware of the changes that you're looking for. We would bring that back at the end of June, and it would amend the book that you're adopting tonight. So I just want to make that clear that we can move forward with the adoption because we can amend it anytime.
Thank you. So I think as requested, you just mentioned them. Do you need me to mention them again? The 40?
I'll have the recording. I just wanted to get clarity that I captured. Those are the things I captured for next
Well,
time.
and then the general plan update.
Yes,
And then
yes.
the 800 grand set
Yes.
aside for after analysis of the wall at Somerset.
Mhm.
So motion to make all of those budget updates.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, it moves. At this time, I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Your city clerk would like a clarification to make sure that everything that was discussed by Christine is included in that motion that was presented this evening.
Oh, sorry.
Out of economic grant, we're going to move the 20,000 that was for Juneteenth and the 10,000 for economic development, put that into general fund. We're going to, for the homecoming park, we're going to add the basketball resurfacing. We're going to move up Windsor Way, but along with the equipment, we're going to also add resurfacing there. We're going to explore lighting in both of those parks. We're at an equity analyst, fully funded, fully loaded, Carrie. And general plan update, we're going to move that up, hopefully being done in a couple of years. And then we're going to put the $800,000 aside for potential wall updates at Somerset if necessary.
In addition to the equity analyst, it was the equity strategic planning.
An equity strategic plan.
And I second that amendment to the motion or addition.
All clear? Do we need to vote again, or
Did you
what?
say Windsor Way, or are you going to wait till the CIP discussion?
No, Windsor Way, no, that is part, we're moving that up. Because we're going to move the lockers down and we're going to move that up.
And the lockers down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need a revote, or?
Is the item as framed by Councilmember Mendoza what each of you understood you were voting on when you voted?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Then I think the vote is clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. We will take a 10-minute recess between our city council successor agency meeting. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for the City Council Successor Agency meeting of May 28th, 2024 at 7:18. Could I get a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Meyer,
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Here.
Councilmember Orlemans.
Here.
Councilmember Pearson,
Here.
Mayor Bryant.
Here. Could you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This time, there is nothing to report out from our earlier closed session, and we will open public comments. Mark?
At this time, the public present in the chambers the public present in the chambers, sorry, that are permitted to address the city council on items that are not on the agenda. Items listed under presentations, informational reports are on the consent calendar. Requests for future agenda items, new request. Comments for the detailed future agenda items or business items should be made when those items are called. Please limit your remark to 5 minutes. The microphone will be muted when the timer expires. I have one speaker card. I'll call on Danny Dorman.
Okay. Good evening. First, as the officially unofficial host of the Don Lemon Live at 5 show, I urge you all to join me and chime in on the Don Lemon Live at 5 show. It's on YouTube. Imagine being able to interact with Anderson Cooper or Sean Hannity, or for that matter, Harvey Levin. That chance to interact, not just listen in. This is what you get with Don Lemon Live at 5. It starts at 2 o'clock our time. It's actually pretty cool. And I'm not a paid spokesman. I just really like the show. And I do like interacting, as you can see. Secondly, I want to give special kudos to Troy White. That's the gentleman who saved the 3-year-old girl here in Brentwood. He is a military vet, and I had a conversation with one of my sons about the people who were around that were just observing, and my son criticized those people. And I told him, son, as the councilman can attest, not many people will run into a burning building. It is, for some, it's not a matter of choice. And so he did what he needed to do. And for that man, I say, Semper Fi. And then, of course, third, requesting that you allow the stay-at-home parent, the invalid, those who really would like to speak and be heard but can't make it down here. This is a voting year, and I think that this, what may seem to be a little thing, may make a difference because people do wish to be heard. And now the tough one. Good. I actually have a member from the audience. Okay. And awake. Okay, let me start off with this. This is what 4 feet looks like. This is the Department of Transportation.
Danny, come forward and have John go that way.
Okay.
Come to the mic. No, to the mic.
Oh.
So we can,
Okay.
people at home can hear you.
You gotta
And then
scoot down,
John
yeah.
back up. There we
Okay,
go.
I'm sorry. This is 6 feet. This is the minimum and average sidewalk length. This is 8 feet, which is the minimum space for commercial, particularly storefronts and restaurants. Thank you. There are some places downtown who only have this. Now you have, as staff and private interest, because I really can't say it any other way, to work with the statutes we have. Now, it was enlightening to me that the numbers I gave were actually the Department of Transportation. These are federal guidelines. So I don't know about working with statutes, local statutes, and supersede, but I'm not here to judge. I am here to ask that you have someone from planning participate in this. We need someone to be our advocate, not the restaurateurs, not staff, not those who even love the dining experience, the everyday folks, because this is 4 feet and this is what we have in some places downtown. Thank you.
I have no additional speaker cards.
Thank you. At this time, we will close public comments and we will move into presentations. Item E1, a presentation from Los Medanos College related to dual enrollment.
Council members, thanks for having us here. I'm Pamela Ralston, and I'm very happy to serve as the president of Los Medanos College. We wanted to be able to join you today to talk about some of the great work that we've undertaken. We're turning 50 this year. So in 1974, we established our campus in Pittsburgh, and we have done a lot of great work there. And as you know, in 2021, we opened our campus at the Brentwood Center, which is what we're really here to focus on tonight. So we're located on 17 acres on Pioneer Square near the intersection of Marsh Creek Road and Vineyards Parkway. We've got an education center that is LEED certified and is about 55,000 square feet. We accommodate up to 5,000 students. And in the spring semester, we had 2,500 students enrolled in everything from art and science, child development to fire technology and world languages. Our students at the Brentwood Center can complete an associate's degree, complete their general education requirements, take transfer courses, take career and technical education courses, and then they can access the same support services that we offer at our larger campus in Pittsburgh, including our tutoring, counseling, library resources, our great computer lab, the bookstore, basic needs assistance, financial aid, and admissions and records. I would love to have you out to visit. Several of you in the audience today, I know, have been by to visit our campus, and so we encourage everyone who hasn't had a chance to come out and take a look at it. So Los Medanos College is a Hispanic serving institution. Our student population is 44% Latinx. We serve students across a diverse background, and we serve students all over our service area. We are in the center of the best work that we can possibly do. Our students range in age from 18 to 70. We have a lot of students that you'll hear about in a little while who are high school aged, and so you'll hear from Dave a bit about that. But we offer over 80 programs across a variety of areas, and we are able to keep students in our community serving our economic base, and then they go out and transfer to incredible institutions like UC Berkeley and MIT. We just granted our next scholarship winner for the Jack Kent Cook Award, which affords someone $55,000 a year when they transfer. We've had a Jack Kent Cook Scholar almost every year for the past 5. We are an Aspen Award-winning institution. We've been nominated in the top 150 community colleges nationwide 5 times in a row. We're hoping to win the big prize someday. And we're just incredibly proud of what we're able to do and what we offer. So the students who come to us transfer at better rates than students who often enter in as freshmen into really competitive institutions. So we transfer a number of students to the CSU, the UCs, and private institutions. And last year, we awarded 610 associate degrees, 484 degrees designed for transfer to the CSU, and then certificates of achievement for people upskilling in their lives. And first-time college students who take over 12 units can attend Los Medanos College for free. And so that's one thing that we really want to stress here is that we know that students who are able to attend closer to full-time have a tendency to outperform their peers who are attending at part-time levels. And so we're encouraging students to come and be with us. And we've just celebrated on the 17th our commencement. We had the largest commencement ever with 521 participants. We graduated over 1,302 students. And so with that, I'm going to transition and introduce you to Dave Bellman, who is our Dean of Student Success, and he's going to talk about the pipeline that helps make Los Medanos College so strong. Thank you.
All right, well, good evening. So before we get students to graduation, we first need to get them to us and to Los Medanos College. And I'm going to talk about what we do when it comes to early college credit work at LMC. But before that, I think it's important to talk about why we do this work related to early college credit. When we pull all the data together across East Contra Costa County and we look at all the students who graduate high school and go to UC, CSU, and community college, it's only about half of high school graduates. And when we think about what that means socially, economically for our community, it's alarming. So early college credit is about getting college experience and units, particularly 6 or more college units before you graduate high school, because it is a huge predictor of whether someone will go on to higher education, whether it's at LMC or anywhere. We offer 3 types of early college credit. First, there's what's known as articulation, where we match up a college class with a high school class that has the same content, and where students who generally get an A or a B in that class are able to get college credit as well as their high school credit. I'm going to focus a little bit on the Brentwood area. So with Liberty Union High School District, we have about 15 of those classes that we articulate. We also have concurrent enrollment, something we've had for a very long time that a lot of folks are familiar with, where a student, a high school student who is approved by their parent and their high school counselor can come to LMC and take college classes on their own, but that group tends to be smaller because students really need the time, the resource, and the transportation to make that happen. So starting about 7 years ago, the state of California approved a program where we are now able to partner with high school sites to offer special blocked sections of LMC classes for students at that particular high school, on that high school site, during the regular school day, which makes early college credit really accessible to large numbers of high school students. It allows them to get introduced to college rigor, explore their career interests before they have graduated high school. It's very accessible and affordable. There is no tuition cost. It's free for high school students who take these classes, and all of their books and materials are covered by the institutions through our partnership agreements. And there's no transportation cost or time involved. They're taking it on their high school site as part of their regular school day. They get 3-for-1 credits. So not only do they get college credit, but if you complete a 3-unit LMC class through this program, you also will get 10 high school credits. And it becomes this great way for students to seamlessly transition into the college and complete college cheaper and faster. As much as I'd love to, we don't quite have the time to go through all the offerings, particularly in this area, but I do want you to know we have multiple pathways at every high school site in the area. We really try and focus on sequences of courses that students can take over multiple semesters, primarily aimed at that 6 or more unit mark. And some of them involve combining articulated credit, dual enrollment, and concurrent enrollment. Like the early childhood education pathway at Freedom, where students are able to get articulated credit in their ROP high school class, then take college classes with the goal of completing 12 units and getting their associate teacher license, where they are able to work in a good paying job at the time that they have completed high school. We put a lot of effort and resource into this work, As a college, we have more than 50 sections of dual enrollment across East Contra Costa County on track for next year. So we look at a lot of data associated with it. And I wanted to share just a little bit of that with you in a way that I hope will kind of inspire folks in the community to think about engaging in this. So the year that we are just concluding, 22, 23, 24, we had nearly 500 students in East Contra Costa County taking dual enrollment classes, the majority of whom are taking more than one class. And I can tell you that just about 2/3 of those students were in Liberty Union High School District. And what's really important to us in particular is that we are achieving equity in this work, meaning we don't want to just see one group of students benefiting from this opportunity or one group not benefiting from this opportunity. We want to see everyone having the chance to engage in this and benefit from early college credit opportunities. And what we see is we have a really broad and diverse group of students involved in dual enrollment classes. Specifically when it comes to race and ethnicity, generally the population of dual enrollment students reflects the diversity of the high school districts where those classes are offered. And then the question we most frequently get, of course, is how are these students doing? Can they handle the college rigor? What's it like to take a class when you're used to taking it over the course of a year? Now it's compressed into a semester. Maybe you're a junior in high school. Is this doing college too early? These are the questions that constantly come up. The answer is a resounding yes. Students can do this. Students can be incredibly successful at it. And in terms of success, dual enrollment students actually far outperformed non-dual enrollment students in those same courses. Overall, about 85% of students who are involved in dual enrollment classes are successfully passing those classes, meaning an A, a B, or a C. D is not passing in college. And in particular, we see that every ethnic and racial group has a higher percentage in dual enrollment success compared to the same group at the college, and the equity differences between groups are much smaller. So what that means is not only does dual enrollment have higher success rates, but it actually has more equitable attainment of those successes. And when you look at Liberty Union High School District in particular, right, where about 2/3 of our dual enrollment engagement is happening, this is even more pronounced. The district has significantly higher success rates and nearly equitable success for the students who are engaged in it. And again, I really want to note and stress, these are the same college classes that quote unquote regular LMC students take. They are LMC classes taught by LMC faculty. They just happen to be at that high school site, specially designed and offered for the students from that high school. These sections are not easier, they are just as challenging, but with the support, with the opportunity we've made available, students really are thriving. So with that, I'll wrap things up by saying we really, really believe in the power of early college credit. I know we've had a chance to share some of this with some members of the council previously, and I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to share it with the entire city of Brentwood in this format. We're working hard to continually grow these offerings. We'll have a new ASL pathway launching at Liberty next year, American Sign Language, and a new public service policy pathway launching at Heritage next year. So I encourage all students, all parents to explore these great opportunities, again, that are available to them at no cost. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. You know, Councilwoman Pearson and I are both on the interagency, and we've been wanting this for a long time. And I'm a big proponent of community colleges. I went to Vista, which is now Berkeley City. So I'm a big proponent. I transferred. My daughter also went, and she's transferred. So it's, I think it's a great opportunity, and you save a lot of money, and you get the same education. You get all your general ed out of the way, and you guys have fabulous counselors. I saw you had a fire path. The chief and I were just in the back. We were all talking about how it's hard to get police officers. So maybe there's a police officer path we can talk about someday, which I think would be very helpful. I mean, maybe I'm overreaching, but I don't know. But thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all of the work that you do.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Yes. This time we will move into item E2 in this presentation from the members of the Internship Pilot Program. And I understand that all of our interns are here at this time.
Yes, and just before they come up, good evening, council. I just want to say something briefly. This we could not have done without the partnership of Liberty Union. So special thanks to Superintendent Volta, who is in the office today, audience today, excuse me. And I also want to say thank you to the council for allowing us to pilot this program and doing this in partnership in our own community, starting with our students before they actually go off to college. So before I turn it over to the interns, Superintendent Volta, did you want to share something?
Not tonight.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll turn it over
Proud
to.
of our students.
Thank you. Okay, Vabati, Johnny, Gabriel, and Dominic.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity for us to talk today, and we're really excited to share our experience over the last 6 months working as the first cohort of high school interns with the City of Brentwood. We had 4 participating. Oh, is it on? Sorry. There it is. Sorry. We had 4 main participating departments in this program: Human Resources, Wastewater, City Manager, and Parks and Recreation. I'll be starting us off today as the Human Resources intern, and my name is Vabati Bindra. Throughout my time with Human Resources, I worked in 4 specific subdivisions: marketing and outreach, wellness, onboarding, and administrative support. In terms of marketing and outreach, I worked on developing several flyers and advertisements in hopes to attracting members to apply for a job with the City of Brentwood, as well as cultivating pamphlets to detail city benefits in one cohesive area. I was also able to work on developing new job benefit descriptions to elevate city job postings. In terms of wellness, this was definitely one of my favorite areas to work in, from writing articles to creating challenges based on the monthly wellness theme. This was one of the most fun and interesting areas that I got to work in, and these were published all the way from Human Resources to the Brentwood Buzz. As far as onboarding goes, I was able to work on finding new avenues for advertisement for public sector jobs with a focus on finding ways to attract the youth of our community to work with the city. I also got to attend the job fair, which is one of my favorite memories working with HR, as I was able to meet a variety of interesting and amazing people and get to know the businesses of Brentwood personally. For onboarding, I was also able to attend multiple orientations with seasonal jobs with Parks and Recreation, which gave me an insight as to what traditional onboarding processes look like. For administrative support, I was lucky enough to plan and organize the intern celebration event, which was an amazing opportunity for us interns to meet different people within the city and really get to know their experience and overall just network. Additionally, I was able to work on calendarizing the Human Resources Wellness Calendar, categorizing when and where these events would be taking place. And I even got to conduct state interviews where I was talking to people who worked within the city and getting raw feedback on how they felt about working with the city. As a reflection, this internship provided me an insight to the public sector landscape as a whole, and also a lot of personal insights. So working in HR has been an extremely eye-opening opportunity to discovering the public sector landscape. I found that they focus heavily on providing essential benefits, and they're characterized by serving the public interest with a goal of equity and bolstering community and company growth and culture. However, on the individual level, I also learned so many tools for individual growth, learning advertising strategies, which boosts my experience, especially because I hope to go into business in the future, and overall just improving organization, time management, and my communication skills. But my experience here was only as great as my mentors that I got to work with my main mentor being Teresa. She was someone who was always keeping me involved and included with the department, and I never felt like I wasn't learning something new and valuable. However, I got to work with every single person in my department, and for that, I am extremely thankful, as they've all helped set me up for success. Finally, I have some advice for the future interns and mentors, and it is to always have a plan coming into knowing what you want to achieve every day, doing your best because that's the only way you get the most out of your opportunity, and learning because as an intern, there's always something around you to be looking for. Thank you, and now I'll be passing this on to the wastewater intern.
My name is Dominic Valier. I'm the wastewater intern. While I was the wastewater intern, I also got a ride along with the solid waste department, such as in a roll-off and front-loader trucks. I also got a ride along in the residential trucks, and I got to see how the drivers interact with the community, such as helping disabled members of the community take down their bins, which I got to help with, or stop and interact with residents as well. In the lab, wastewater and drinking water is constantly being tested. I observed and helped with these tests, including testing for bacteria in wastewater, temperature and pH, and other water properties within the wastewater and drinking water. In the other part of the lab is data entry, which in this photo, I was inputting weekly testing data of our drinking water. Collections. Collections is a team that maintains the city sewers, and when I was with them, we would use a robotic crawler to video and inspect the city sewage lines for any possible cracks or damage. The treatment plant. The treatment plant is constantly under construction and retrofitting as they are currently expanding it and adding new structures. And as the treatment plant is constantly in use, I got to see how maintaining it and inspecting it and keeping chemicals up to date is important. What I learned. What I learned as my time as the wastewater intern is the process of sewage. From the sewage entering the city's sewers to its making its way to the treatment plant. To its making it to the treatment plant, and if it is water, out to Marsh Creek, and if it's solid, to a landfill. Oh, sorry, I kind of said that, but my advice for future interns is to ask questions. There's a lot of science and technology being used, and it can get confusing quickly. Another piece of advice is to embrace opportunities, and you're only an intern for a short while, and what you want to learn as much as you can while you're there. And lastly, observe. There are a lot of hands-on things being done, so observing experienced members can help you while you're there. Mentors. While I did have a mentor, everyone in the wastewater department helped me, making sure I was included. They either gave me a task to do, such as data entry or cleaning bottles in the lab, or following an operator around the treatment plant, or going with a collections member around the city, inspecting city pumps. Thank you. Off to Johnny.
Hello, my name is Johnny, and I'm the intern for the city manager's office. For my experience as an intern within the city manager's office, it's been very, very interesting. I've met a lot of new people, I've made a lot of new connections, and I've learned a lot. By putting myself in different situations, building new relationships, and gathering important work experience, it's helped me so much, and it helped me allow myself to unlock new opportunities and insights for my future. As a voter outreach and education liaison, I was able to network and connect with seniors and newly eligible 18-year-olds, getting them involved with our upcoming elections. And I was able to host and create events at my school involving these elections and get more people involved. For the website development, I was able to use my passion for technology, and it really helped me thrive in this project. Through this, I created suggestions to enhance the website. I corrected images, adjusted content, and improved minor changes, all contributing to helping me understand the importance of what topics are most important for our city and what's important for user engagement. When organizing city information, I gathered a lot of data, cross-referencing personal details, corrected any outdated information about anybody, throughout different platforms, worked with different projects. I also protected the privacy of individuals by also censoring and blocking out any sensitive information and protected it for public disclosure. Transferring the city's photography files was another chance to understand the inner workings of the city manager's office. It granted me with insight to the attention of detail it takes, also understanding the amount of repetition on a daily basis for their daily tasks. When working on this project, I had to reveal every single photo taken, categorize it, and file it categorize it on what file it belongs to, download it, and place it in its designated files, and repeat this process for the rest, stemming from some files having 4 photos in it, or some photos containing around 850. I really enjoyed the different types of work that were involved with the city manager's office. When drafting letters, I was able to use this as another opportunity to understand more about the work and impact of the city manager's office, along with the effect it has towards our city entirely. I drafted responses, or when I received these letters, they were meant for Tim Ogden or even the mayor, and I drafted a response, and it was able to be checked, and it showed me a lot of insight on what problems were in the city, how it affects many people of Brentwood. And I noticed that doing this, there were so many different perspectives of things that could be improved within our city. A lot. When I was supporting the economic development team's various efforts, such as their economic development program, incentive policy, and recruitment efforts, to explain more about this, I helped review their land use and development committee meeting, gathered information, and also restated and organized it on a document for the economic development's use. And for my reflection would be that I was able to understand the role of the city manager's office, involve myself with community engagement, grasp the importance of connections and networks, and all this was very important information to me, and I felt as if without this internship, I wouldn't be where I am now. My mentors, Amanda, Margaret, Ricardo, Tim, Melissa, Sidris, and Darren and Abraham. I wouldn't be here without them. And some advice for my future is to make sure you prioritize and organize yourself, be open to meeting people, ask a lot of questions, and learn. And
okay. Thank you so much, Johnny. Good evening, Council. My name is Gabriel Schmidt, and I am the Parks and Recreation intern. My time at Parks and Rec these past 6 months has been great. I've been able to meet so many amazing people, and I've learned so much about the city. Most of my days have been spent carrying out research projects, managing inventory, or assisting with junior warriors in field work. The most prominent part of my work has been research projects. These projects are created in Excel and are meant for data collection and organization. However, the data itself can vary by project. I've worked on researching artistic bike racks to be put up around Brentwood, collected information on rental rates for synthetic and natural turf, and even helped create the Juneteenth event, which was recently approved by this council. There we go. Another part of my work is inventory management. Parks and Rec is a large department with lots of supplies coming and going. That's where I come in. Using Excel, I can categorize and monitor all these different supplies. Some examples of this include cataloging public artworks around Brentwood, as well as recording information about uniform data for the Junior Warriors program. Fieldwork. Fieldwork is another huge part of working for Parks and Recreation. My fieldwork assignment was the Junior Warriors basketball program. For 8 weeks, starting in January of 2024, I would drive out to Bristol Middle School every Saturday morning. Once I arrived, I would bring out folding chairs and help set up the gym. After that, I would go to the electronic scoreboard and set up my paper scorecard. And for the next few hours, I would scorekeep alongside my amazing coworkers. I even had the opportunity to train people how to scorekeep, which I never thought I'd be doing. And for all this, my mentors supported me and taught me new things. I learned how to use Excel, how to scorekeep, and how to send an actual professional email. And I would like to thank my mentor, Tia Nugan, as well as JJ Brandon and Diva Santiago for their kindness and patience. To reflect, working for Parks and Rec has been amazing. I've been given insight into working for the public sector. I've learned what the behind the scenes of Parks and Rec is really like, and every day I felt accepted and valued by my department and by my colleagues. Okay, there we go, that's good. My advice for future interns is to focus on what you do best. Find that part of you that you really want to hone and make professional. And to manage your time wisely. Your time is your time. Do what you want with it. And to communicate with your coworkers and your supervisors. I know I had to learn to do that. And thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
No, I just want to say you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your service to the city. You all deserve a round of applause. Big time. Big time. And I wanted to ask Johnny, you had a photo of some people from economic development. How much photoshopping did you have to do? It was a good shot, by the way. But you all, great job. Wonderful.
Yeah, just echoing what Councilwoman Pearson said, you guys did amazing. Thank you so much for choosing the city of Brentwood to do your internship. I think it's fantastic, and maybe you'll end up here someday, working with staff.
And I just have to say, this whole program is so exciting, and we were all so thrilled to hear that this was happening and to get updates. And the demonstrations that you've just made and the presentations show that it was a really good, fulfilling project for you as well. At least it seems like that. So hopefully you'll encourage all of your classmates that are younger to apply next time. This is fantastic, and we're so proud of everything you've done. Thank you.
Truly amazing presentations. Thank you all for everything you did. Sorry about that. Thank you all for choosing Brentwood to do your internship with, and pass it on to your fellow classmates and other people so that they can do the same program. Thank you.
Yes, well done. Before you leave, I would love for our council and staff that has worked with them to be able to get a picture. I know we don't usually bring all of it in, but this was really an outstanding presentation. It was great to meet those of you that I was able to spend some time with. You've done an outstanding job, so thank you so much. This time we will move into informational reports from council members, committees, liaisons, and staff. And I'll start to my left. Councilman Orlemans.
Okay, since the last council meeting, the bicycle rodeo at Veterans Park, attended the PAL board meeting. Nothing to report out. They did report back, but haven't got the final numbers on the golf tournaments. I attended Bags and Brews in the downtown on Sunday. Amazing event. We had a lot of fun, a lot of people downtown. I watched the Planning Commission meeting. Some of the amazing training, good solid 2 hours of amazing information. Enjoyed every bit of it. And the farmer's market. That was it.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Since we last met, I attended the Brentwood Senior Center Resource Fair. Really have to give a shout out to staff. They did a fantastic job at making sure all the vendors were set up and felt welcome, and the resources were all covered. It was a really great event. Attended the Debbie, the Diversity, Equity, Belonging, and Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee meeting with Councilmember Pearson. watched the Planning Commission meeting, had a Community Day of Service wrap-up and debrief meeting with Julie Deck and Amy Tilley, who are, again, are rock stars in this whole thing, doing a lot of talking about what we're going to do next year to make it even better if that's possible. It was such a successful event. Attended the Shadow Lakes Annual Cleanup Day, which was led by HOA board members and was really successful. Met a lot of families that were new to the city and tried to brag about the city and share some resources with them. The DBC Memorial Day service, which was before the cornhole tournament at the Bags and Brews. The military, our local military, did a beautiful job. The Gold Star families who had lost someone, they all told their personal stories. It was very moving. Volunteered at the cornhole tournament following that by pouring beer, which was actually really, really fun. Met a lot of people, had some great discussions. There was a lot of interest in the yard, I have to say. We were in front of that, so a lot of people were asking what that was. And then the Memorial Day event at Union Cemetery. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Since the last time we met, I visited the parks on the east side with residents. We did a little ride along. Attended the town hall with Tim at El Camino. Our Neighborhood Voices statewide electeds meetings. Yes, we're not going to give up on local control. I hosted Guerin Elementary third graders here in City Hall, which it was just really quick, but they had never been in the chamber, so they were just enamored with our chamber. They were so cute. The League of Latino Cities Caucus, I had 2 meetings. One is our Public Relations and Strategic Plan Committee meeting, and the other one was with the board. Attend the Memorial Day presentation to Gold Star families at the Bags and Brews. Also volunteered at Bags and Brews. I don't think I've ever poured as much beer ever in my life as I did that one day. It was a lot of fun, a lot of people. I think the estimate is about 5,000 people. Memorial Day event at Union Cemetery, and watched the Planning Commission training on land use, which was very interesting. It was really good, but there was a lot of non-answers to some questions, which I thought was interesting on behalf of the consultant.
All right, so good afternoon. Since our last meeting, I attended the May 16th special closed session meeting, the May 18th Rotary Gala, which was amazing. May 21st, the Debbie meeting. May 21st, school interagency meeting. May 20th meeting, the town hall with Tim. City Juneteenth planning meeting over Zoom. Interviewed a couple of performers who will be at Juneteenth. Attended today's closed session meeting and the budget workshop, and went to the farmer's market. Been a busy, busy little bee.
And since the last time we met, I was not able to be at the last city council meeting in person, but I did watch both the city council meeting as well as the planning training online. I attended the Industrial Association Mayor's Forum, which was an economic development effort assisted by Ricardo. Got to meet with a lot of potential corporations, let them know that our city is looking to bring high-paying, high-quality tech, medical tech, jobs into the area. I had some great connections and conversations there. I attended Tri-Delta board meeting. I also got to attend the C-SPAN Student Cam winners, the recipients. It was at Heritage High School, and those students were participating in C-SPAN's program for a 5-minute presentation of something that was impactful locally, nationally, internationally, and for the next 10 or 15 years in the future. And these students are just outstanding. They placed in the top 150 out of over 3,000 applicants, and it was really great. Also, I attended the 2024 Guru Vandana appreciation event that was put on at Rotten Nun Elementary School, where the students took time to appreciate their teachers from the Brentwood Union Elementary schools, as well as several other local Brentwood schools. It was really a great event, and Dr. Dana Eaton was there as well. I attended the Rotary Golf fundraiser, and I attended the Union Cemetery Memorial Day event. It was very well attended by our residents, and I have nothing further to report at this time. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just make two brief announcements so the public's aware, we have 2 ribbon cuttings next week. The PATA, the High School Public Art Project, has a ribbon cutting for their Tri-Fish public art piece on the corner of O'Hara and Sand Creek. So that will be held June 4th at 2 p.m. And parking will be north of that, off the main roads, so the public's aware of that. And then secondly, we have the Creekside.
What time will that be on June 4th?
2 o'clock, June 4th. And then on Wednesday, June 5th at 5 p.m. at Creekside Park, we have the ribbon cutting for the pickleball courts. And invite the public to come and celebrate both of those projects with the community.
Thank you. I did have a chance to drive by that placement of the PATA, the Tri-Fish. It looks amazing. It really is really impressive. They did a great job. At this time, we'll move into the consent calendar. And do I have a motion for it?
I move to accept the consent calendar.
A second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent calendar moves as presented. We will move into public hearings. Item H1, Capital Improvement Program, CIP for 2024-2025 through 2029.
Somebody try to turn you on?
That's okay, I'm back on. And this next item is related to the Capital Improvement Program, and Sonia Augustini, our accounting manager, will begin the presentation. Sonia.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. We're here tonight for the Council's consideration of the final adoption of the 2024-25 to 2028-29 Capital Improvement Program. The Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, that's presented tonight sets forth the city's 5-year infrastructure and capital planning needs, and it consists of the city's projects that cover roadways, parks and trails, water, wastewater, community facilities, as well as community facilities improvements. Additionally, the CIP provides information on future improvement projects along with upcoming development improvement projects. The preparation of the CIP has been a combined effort between staff from departments throughout the city. It began many months ago, culminating into the document you're seeing tonight. As you are aware, the development and production of the annual 5-year CIP is an important step in the city's budgeting process. The CIP is prepared to reflect the priorities that are set by the City Council, and it includes capital projects that are a result of the City Council's strategic planning process, other new infrastructure or facilities that are needed for various reasons, along with replacement projects. On April 9th, the City Council held the public workshop for this proposed CIP. That workshop provided the public with an opportunity to provide feedback on the draft CIP and for the City Council to discuss projects with the staff members, give their feedback regarding the document, and then, of course, provide guidance for future CIP preparation. The guidance and direction that was provided by the Council at the workshop has been incorporated into the final draft of the CIP. Since the April workshop, there have been only a few changes made to the CIP document, which have been outlined in tonight's staff report. 2 of the changes I would like to mention, made in accordance with direction provided by the City Council at the CIP workshop, are first, the addition of the fleet electrification project, and secondly, the project timing adjustment for the comprehensive general plan update. However, based on feedback that has been provided earlier this evening at the operating budget workshop, the project timing for that project will be moved back up forward in timing. Staff has additionally made notes of the other changes that were recommended at the operating budget workshop for CIP projects. The plan at this time would be to bring back any projects that need to be amended in June with updated CIP project sheets for council's consideration at that time. That will allow staff to determine timing updates and potentially dollar value changes. An additional key point to keep in mind regarding the CIP is that except for multi-year designated projects, the council is approving budgets for projects in the upcoming fiscal year only, or 24-25. The remaining 4 years of the program are for planning purposes, and staff will return every year with an updated CIP for your consideration. And as always, any contracts or agreements that are over $50,000 will always come back to the City Council for their approval before they move forward. If the City Council adopts the CIP this evening, it will complete another milestone in the city's budgeting process. Both the funding and expenditure budgets, as mentioned earlier today, that are associated with the CIP projects being presented tonight have been incorporated into the draft 2-year operating budget if it's applicable. And that was presented earlier this evening again at the workshop. I would like to thank the City Council again for providing the policy direction, the priorities, and the strategic initiatives that guided staff throughout the preparation of this document. And again, at this time, staff is available here for any questions that you may have.
Are there any clarifying questions of staff from council at this time?
The adjustments we made earlier, do we do that during discussion or?
You can certainly discuss anything
Okay,
you
so we don't-
want. We
okay.
have made notes of everything, and I feel like we have made notes and we can bring back amended sheets. I did want to remind the council, I forgot to mention this, the CIP can be amended at any time. So while you are if you do choose to adopt this at this time, we will bring back sheets. The intent is to bring back any amended sheets that are needed in June. And we will add those to the front of the document, and they'll be amended sheets. And at any time, a staff member, we can bring forward staff reports to council. For instance, if we're coming for a contract adoption, let's say, we want to move a project up or down in timing, change funding at that time, we can bring that forward in any staff report.
Okay. When CIP projects are done, do you ever update the sheet with final cost and either savings or overage, like an easy way for us to be able to see how we ended up on that? Or do we have to ask? I guess sometimes I don't know where we ended up on a project.
We do not put out a new project sheets with final changes, but we certainly have that information and very easily can pull that for any project, or we can provide that at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff, clarifying questions? Seeing, yes.
I have a question of staff. Seeing that we had significant direction earlier in the meeting, would it be better just to adopt the CIP next month, or do you want to adopt it and have an amended one come back right away in a meeting or two? Do you have a preference?
I do. If we adopt the CIP as it is tonight, any amended sheets, the entire document will not need to be revised. Anytime you amend a sheet subsequent to the initial adoption, that sheet basically gets put in the front of the document, and that's the updated sheet. However, we can certainly do anything the council would desire regarding the CIP.
So just to be clear, you want us to adopt it tonight and we can do the amendments later? Is that what you're saying? Or you would rather we adopted it next time?
So if you adopt, maybe Katie can help out, we can adopt tonight.
That's one of
I
your
would
preference.
recommend, you can change, if you know an exact change for a project, you could easily make that change with your motion tonight. However, based on especially the parks projects, that staff needs to look at the capacity. I would recommend that we have staff look at the capacity for the timing changes. We may not need to move a project back, let's say, And then we can come back in June if the projects need to be such as Windsor Way. We can bring forward a new project with the timing change showing up in 24, 25, let's say, the initial funding potentially. Same with the comprehensive general plan update. We're already going to have the funding reserved at the end of 23, 24, or the majority of it. So we can bring back just the amended sheet, and we may not even start it in 24, 25. I'm not sure when that would be. Again, that is the plan. We will bring those back with those changes, and we would not have to redo the entire document. The other option is we could bring it back if council would allow us to bring back the document as is with the updated sheets, but we typically will roll all of the adjustments through the document, which takes quite a bit of staff time.
Can we just adopt with, like, so for example, can we adopt Windsor Way, moving that up to this year, Eggert Park, moving that back, or sorry, Lockers, moving that back. So that's just a timing change. And then the amendments would be the addition of the basketball coating and the lighting. So could we do that? Would that be okay? Would that be pretty easy enough?
If I could jump in for just a second, it'd be easier on staff because we won't have a consistent book without updating all the numbers, then that link through the whole document. If we start changing the years, what would happen is all the summary schedules and everything would have to be adjusted as well. So to adopt tonight and then amended sheets in June would be a much easier process for staff, just because we wouldn't have to redo the document to reflect all of the changes. You see what I'm saying? The initial document itself can stand as it is, and then we just provide updated sheets in June. Versus if we make the amendments now, the whole book, all the summary schedules, all the totals, the language talking about how much we're spending next year, everything would have to be revised to make sure that we're consistent with any changes that are made here tonight.
But then I guess my concern is from a public entity perspective, we're reporting out a number and we know the number is going to change. So I would rather the public know the right number than, and like on all of our documents, I would prefer everyone know exactly what we're doing. I understand it's easier, right? Like, because the dependencies, but if we want the public to really know what we're doing for this CIP cycle, shouldn't, if we're making those changes, make that what we're delivering to the public?
Well, the updated project sheets would go in the front of the book, so they would be able to see the timing of the projects as soon as they were amended by council. What I'm referring to more is so there's a lot of places in the book that are gonna have to be reviewed and checked to make sure everywhere we talk about, there's a narrative, so things that aren't linked. So the book would need to be updated for anything, any straggling numbers or verbiage that talks about any of the project. They would just have to all be updated as opposed to just updating those sheets and just putting them in the front of the book. That's all.
And we'll have updated sheets in June is what you're saying?
So we should be able to include updated sheets for moving. So certainly the timing. We're moving the timing of Windsor Park. That's not an issue. The timing of adding a basketball court, I think we need to get the dollar amount. And I'm not sure how long that would take on Parks and Rec side. But a timing one certainly can be brought back in June.
Do our asks create a new CIP, or is it an adjustment to the existing CIP?
It's an existing CIP that would be adjusted.
Okay, I understand, yeah.
I don't. So I heard Tim propose 2 items, and I don't think I still understand. Are we saying wait to do it later, or are we saying adopt it tonight and then add something later? I'm confused, I'm sorry. There was a lot of talk. And I don't think I know. So Tim gave 2 options. Can you say those again, Tim?
Well, I just
And then
asked
I just want to hear what
if staff
would be
had
the
a
best one
preference.
for staff's preference, yes.
I just thought if staff had a preference, and it sounds like either option could work. We can make it work. If you want an internally consistent document, as Councilmember Mendoza was saying, which does add value to the public, being able to see and understand clearly, then that would be to adopt now and we revise it later, correct?
I think the 2 options would be if we postpone the adoption and staff does everything they can to make updated sheets for timing for the comprehensive general plan update project, the Windsor Way project, and potentially moving out one of the other parks projects as needed to so that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish in 24, 25. The movement of that is not overly difficult, and we would roll those through the entire document. We would come back to you at the very last meeting in June, at the same time with the operating budget, the same night as the operating budget, ideally, for you to approve that document. It is a little more time consuming on staff's part. We certainly can do that. The second option would be to adopt the document as it is tonight, and then we would still come back the second meeting in June, and we would come back with potentially 3 amended projects for your consideration, and with the corrected timing and potentially even changes in funding if we have additional information that we can incorporate. And then those would be adopted. They amend what was approved, 4 weeks earlier, potentially, and then they go in the front of the document onto the website. So they're there. It's just if you're looking at a summary sheet, it won't match up. You have to go to the front of the document, which we do. Anytime we amend a CIP, we try to put a summary in the very front of the CIP. So if you go on to the website right now, you'll see a page where we list out all the amendments, the date the council amended it, the resolution, and then we put the sheet in the front so they can see the amended sheet.
I have a question for Carrie. Do you have a ballpark figure of how much more expensive that process would be time-wise? How many more hours is it going to take staff to do that versus to approve it and then approve the amendment?
Actually, I think you've tossed that to the wrong person because Sonia's going to be the one doing all the work on that.
The actual moving of numbers on a sheet are not difficult, but because we want to bring forward a product that is correct, we do a lot of review. And while yes, taking in time, thank you. And so while the actual changing of a sheet, very, very simple, could take 10 minutes to make sure the sheet looks great, make sure there's no changes in verbiage, or maybe there's a few changes in verbiage. To review and roll everything through the entire document and make sure everything rolls into the correct years. If you look at every summary page in that document, it's going to take many hours. I'm not exactly sure how many because we're pretty good at what we do, but it definitely will take time. And we want to review because we want you all to have a very good, complete, with as much as possible, no errors.
Thank you. So, if there are no further clarifying questions of staff, this time I will now open the public hearing and call on Margaret to open public comments.
At this time, the public present in the chambers and on Zoom are permitted to address the City Council on this agenda item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak under public comment. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comments from the chambers, then Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired, and we received no written public comments on this item. I do have one speaker in person. I'll call on Danny.
Hello again. I'm here specifically to talk about the PA1 and the Lone Tree project. In both cases, I believe we want to make sure that we are prepared for what it is we want to have. I'll start with Lone Tree. We have at least 2 developments getting ready to be built there. And we're planning, it's not so much money, but when we start doing the underpass and everything along those lines, I think we need to consider what it is that's going to be done there in the next 2 or 3 years, because we don't want to have to go back in retro or go back and find out, well, hey, we forgot about this apartment complex and now we're going to have road issues. PA1 is actually more important to me because when it talks about infrastructure, honestly, we're still looking at a 1990s type of planning: sewer, water, power. What I didn't see in here had to do with what's called a MAN, or a metropolitan area network. So basically the internet pipes that come in here. Without seeing that, and with what it is we want to do, not only with just PA1, but Brentwood as a whole, I didn't see it. It could be there, but before we start spending $9 million or thereabouts on planning for just sewer, water, and power, that we need to look at what it is we want to do there in addition to. And so whether that is through microwave transmission, which can be done, I helped set that up in San Mateo once upon a time, or a larger sonic ring, which is basically that internet pipe that I was talking about. But we need to look at that as well as what we see here. Otherwise, we're going to go back and we're going to have to tear stuff up to put this stuff back in. So just something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no additional speaker cards, and I see no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. At this time, we will close public comment. And I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Before we go further, is there staff that can address Mr. Dorman's comments regarding the additional infrastructure for that kind of thing?
I'm not sure what a MAN is that he was describing, but as relates to the CIP specifically for PA1 and the Innovation Center, that's set up for a variety of infrastructure, including kind of on the outer banks of it, including extending utilities across property, which we purchased the easements from one of the two property owners. We're working with the second one to bring the wet utilities to the west side of Highway 4. And then what we're working with is a variety of different property owners and future developers to determine what will actually go there. And we have a nice planning document that was adopted through the specific plan as that goes to be implemented. But as it relates to internally, specifically where utilities will exactly go, that has yet to be determined until a project moves forward, and then they make a determination of where a building's going to be located, where a parking lot's going to be located, where the road's going to be located. So we have a general specific plan, and that will be finalized once a developer comes forward. But we're still working with those, and we don't have one specific right now that's purchasing any property.
I know that years ago, when the city was building out toward Deer Valley Road in that direction, past downtown almost, basically. They had, that council included conduit, empty conduit to help assist with the fiber optic connectivity that would happen, which is really why we were able to partner with Sonic at the time and become one of 14 cities in the country that have fiber optic gigabit connectivity. And so that is the kind of thing that I'm sure that we will keep in mind as well, because that is a huge selling point and drawing point for the economic development groups that I've been talking to, bringing tech this direction, that's something that they were unaware of and are very excited about. So thank you, Mr. Dorman, for that. At this time, do we have any further discussions? What would we like to do regarding this item? Do I have a
I
motion?
don't have much discussion. When the motion comes forward, I said we can approve it as is, because I think that's the easiest for y'all. And then with the caveat that we move Windsor Way to 2425, along with what we said, the basketball courts, the cover, exploring the lights. Same thing with Homecoming, adding the basketball coating, or I don't know what it's called, sorry. And exploring lights, and then moving back the locker room remodeling to accommodate for both workload and budget necessities is what I would say. I don't have any other suggestions.
If that was a motion, I'll second it. Was that a motion or no?
I don't know if anyone else wants to make any other changes. Then that's my motion.
Okay, we have a first
I will second.
and a second.
And just so I'm clear, so your motion is to adopt the document as presented tonight, and staff will bring back the changed sheets to the extent they are ready in June. It sounded like a couple of the items may need a little further exploration in terms of the impacts. So if they are not all ready at the end of June, staff will bring back whichever ones are ready for your review and approval at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to, for Bruce, if you could just keep us in the loop. Councilwoman Pearson is the District 2 rep, and I drove around, so if we could know what's going on, because the residents would really like to be kept up to date if possible.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, the item moves. We'll move into item H2. Consideration of actions pertaining to the city's landscape and lighting assessment district, including landscape and lighting assessment districts number 19-3, number 21-1, and the Citywide Park Maintenance District number 98-1 for fiscal year 2024-25. That's what we just did, correct?
No.
Nope, that's what we're going into doing. Okay. Yes, thank you. And so at this time, Bruce Mulder. Bruce.
All right, good evening once again, Mayor and council members. I have a little script to read here regarding our annual assessments for our landscape lighting assessment districts. So in accordance with the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972, this item is the third and final step in the annual approval process to authorize the levying of assessments for fiscal year 24-25 based on benefit conferred to property within the City Park Maintenance District number 98-1, Landscape and Lighting Assessment District number 19-3, Landscape and Lighting Assessment District number 21-1, which is Deer Ridge, and the city's other 65 landscaping lighting assessment districts included in the consolidated report. Citywide Park Maintenance District number 98-1 will provide an estimated $3.8 million in revenue for fiscal year 24-25 to maintain the city's park system. The assessments for the district are proposed to be levied at the authorized maximum rate. Landscape and Lighting Assessment District number 19-3 is comprised of non-residential and multifamily developments and has multiple zones of benefit. The zones of benefit were created to address varying degrees of benefit from landscape, park, street lighting, and trail improvements. This district will provide an estimated $149,000 in revenue for fiscal year 24-25. The proposed assessment rates for each zone of benefit are proposed to be levied at or below the maximum established when the district was formed. Landscaping Lighting Assessment District number 21-1, Deer Ridge, is comprised of a construction component and a maintenance component. The construction component provides funding for recently installed landscape improvements and will be assessed to properties within the Deer Ridge development through fiscal year 2031-32. The maintenance component provides a funding for the ongoing maintenance of the landscape improvements and is assessed annually. This district will provide an estimated $99,000 in revenue for fiscal year 24-25. The 65 landscaping lighting assessment districts included in the consolidated report will provide an estimated $10.8 million in revenue for fiscal year 24-25 to maintain landscape, park, street lighting, and trail improvements benefiting properties within these districts. The proposed assessment rate for each of these districts is proposed to be levied at or below the maximum established when each respective district was formed. Upon the close of the public hearing this evening, staff is recommending the City Council approve the engineer's reports and adopt a resolution authorizing the fiscal year 24-25 assessments for the city's landscaping and lighting assessment districts. And the city's consultant, Mr. Ed Espinosa, is here, as well as myself, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Clarifying questions of staff at this time. Okay. Seeing none at this time. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Vice
okay.
Mayor.
Just for the sake of public clarity, I wanted to get a confirmation Deer Ridge is what was expected and estimated and everything is along the lines of what it was supposed to be.
Yes, that is correct. And actually, staff is working on getting the water turned on for the fountain very soon. So we should be able to see the water on within the next week or two. It's coming.
I was just going to say, if you don't give us a timeline, you know we're going to get those phone calls. So thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing. And Margaret, do we have any public comments?
At this time, the public present in the chambers and in Zoom are permitted to address the city council on this item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comment from the chambers, then Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired. And we received no written public comments on this item. I have no speaker cards and I see no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close public comments, and I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion. I'm tired.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, item moves. Then, is there any further council discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the actions of the city's landscape and lighting assessment districts.
I second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. And Margaret, do you need to read anything? No? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, the item moves. We will move into I, requests for future agenda items. Are there any new requests for future agenda items at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into item J, requested future agenda items. At this time, we will consider a request from Vice Mayor Meyer related to updating the regular meeting time for the Agricultural Enterprise Committee. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. This is a very simple request. The regular meeting times for the Ag Enterprise Committee is quarterly on the first Monday of the month at 2 p.m. And I would like to request to change that to the end of the day as early as 4, but preferably 5, depending on staff capacity, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, Margaret, I'll open public comments at this time.
At this time, the public present in the chambers and on Zoom are permitted to address the city council on this item. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comments from the chambers, then Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or if the timer has expired. And we received no written public comments on this item prior to the meeting. I have no speaker cards and there's no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close public comments, move into council discussion on this item.
Whatever works for the people on committee, it's fine with me.
It's fine with me.
I like to make a motion to approve.
Can I just double check, since we didn't have this discussion, is there anything preventing staff from being okay with this?
I haven't asked my wife if I can be gone later that evening. However the council directs, we'll be able to make it work as relates to the Ag Enterprise meeting.
How about if we split it down the middle?
4:30?
Mm-hmm. That'd be reasonable?
The city council gets to set the start time for these meetings.
You keep that up, I'm going to say 5.
If that's what the council gets to set this, it's set by a motion of the city council, and so the council gets to make that decision.
All right, I'm going to say 5. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to move the meeting that she requested to 5 p.m.
I'll second. Oh.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, moving into adjournment. Before I ask for a motion for adjournment, tonight I would like to adjourn in honor of a gentleman that passed away, I believe, within the last 2 weeks. His name is Mr. Willie Mims. Mr. Mims was an institution in East Contra, Costa County when it came to representing human rights, concerns, minorities. Anywhere that you went, as long as I've been on council and long before then, attending different community functions and events, you would see Mr. Mims in his princely, statuesque way, standing in support of those that needed a voice. And he was a leader with the NAACP, and he was always on the scene when somebody needed to have a voice, he was there. So at this time, with the indulgence of council, we will adjourn in honor of Mr. Willie Mims. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.